Good morning. I'm Amanda Hansen here at the Action News 5 digital desk. Let's talk about vaping among young people. It's apparently on the rise. In fact, I was looking at some new research that was saying more than 16% of high school students and almost 5% of middle school students reported using a tobacco product. So we're going to dive into this a little bit more. We have someone joining us right now, Dr. Susan Wally. She is here to talk more about this, give advice to parents. Doctor, good morning.
Hi, Amanda. Thanks so much for having me.
So glad to have you on. I think this is such a big topic, especially for parents, knowing what they can do to make sure that their child isn't vaping and doing these sorts of things. So let's just talk about some of the products that, nicotine products that they're using, and then just, is this at a point where you could consider this a crisis among teens?
Absolutely, Amanda. I mean, we at the American Academy of Pediatrics, and I'm a parent of 3 boys and a pediatrician, this is a public health crisis. You know, we have adolescents who are not able to make it through their day because of severe nicotine addiction. And we know the reasons for that. Tobacco companies have, deceptively marketed these products and added flavors that include child enticing flavors like dessert, candy, things like Sour Patch Kids and chocolate and mango. And we know that these flavors attract our youth. And so, as you mentioned, vaping is at a point where it is a public health crisis. There are also other nicotine and tobacco products, including oral nicotine pouches, gummies, lozenges. And so we at the American Academy of Pediatrics want, parents to know that, they can talk with their children, let them know that, this is a dangerous health condition in terms of nicotine addiction.
So let's talk about that a little bit more. How parents, what can they do? Are there steps that they can take to protect their children and prevent them from using these types of products? What can they do?
Absolutely. There's so many things that we as parents can do. And first and foremost, we want parents to know that they are their child's most important role model. So if a parent is using tobacco and nicotine, I want parents to know, your listeners to know, that there are a lot of resources out there to help them quit. We know that children who have parents and other caregivers that use tobacco are more likely to use themselves. And so that's number one. And then number two, we want parents and other caretakers to talk to their children. Let them know that there are health effects, negative, very severe health effects, including something called EVALI, e-cigarette or vaping associated lung injury. That's been associated with thousands of hospitalizations, death, lung transplant due to lung failure. And so, having that message out there is really important. Parents can also be advocates. And so the American Academy of Pediatrics strongly urges, communities and, both at the local, state, and federal level to make sure that they're enforcing, policies that, protect our children. First and foremost, the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, has regulatory authority over nicotine and tobacco, and we want to make sure that they exert and they regulate using that authority.
So let's, I know this is such an issue. I remember especially during the pandemic just talking about all those young people that were in the hospital with the lung issues and having to be on ventilators and things like that. So obviously a lot of information. Where can people go to learn a little bit more about some of the things that we talked about?
Absolutely. So the American Academy of Pediatrics has a wonderful website called healthychildren.org. And it, explains the concerns about vaping and e-cigarette use, as well as, nicotine and tobacco addiction. It also has lots of great information just about, having healthy children and other child health issues. So healthychildren.org.
Well, Dr. Susan Wally, I appreciate your time this morning talking about such an important topic and some great information for those parents out there. You have a good one, all right?
Thank you, Amanda.
We are in store for another day of sunshine here across the Mid-South. In fact, temperatures hitting the low 80s, a south wind at 10 to 20, so a little bit breezy but unseasonably warm as we go through the afternoon. But let's talk about the chance for a few strong storms. Not a big chance, but as we go into tomorrow evening, tomorrow night, there may be some of those storms out there, especially in Arkansas, with a slight risk, mainly for wind or hail. And it's really a low end risk. This is a 1 or a 2 on a scale of 1 to 5. So not a huge deal, but something we'll keep an eye on just in case. But ahead of it, it's going to stay nice and warm, even through the day tomorrow as the clouds increase. We'll see a pretty warm afternoon, but those storms start to develop tomorrow afternoon over central Arkansas, and then they push to the east, and we'll see kind of waves of showers and storms as we go through Friday into Friday night. So it may not rain all day or all night, but certainly it's going to come in these waves as that low pressure system moves over us, and then we get colder air filtering into the Mid-South this weekend. Will feel pretty chilly across much of the region. Now let's talk about the exact timing in Futurecast, and I want to show you that rain moving in. So tomorrow morning will be dry, but as we go into the afternoon, here's those showers and thunderstorms eastern Arkansas around 5 o'clock. We may start the day with sunshine in some areas, but as we go through tomorrow night, we're all covered up in heavy rain. And again, most of that does not look severe at this point. Then we get a break early Friday morning, but another round comes in as we go through the day, Friday afternoon into Friday night. Again, heavy rain will be the main issue with this batch. Now, how much rain could fall? 1 to 2 inches on average, but I'm not going to rule out 3 inches in a few spots. So we're definitely going to get a big soaking out of this system. And then as we go to the weekend, temperatures struggling to get into the low to mid 60s. Clouds will linger some on Saturday. Sunshine returns on Sunday. And check out the First Alert 7-day forecast. We'll trade the 80s for the 60s over the weekend. Saturday night, 44 low here in Memphis, but there could be some upper 30s. Frost is a possibility on Sunday morning. And then as we go to Monday and Tuesday, only in the upper 60s and another chance of rain by the middle of next week.
All right, so this is a topic that I think is so interesting. You know, we see so much data every single day. We're constantly on our phones. It's hard to put the phone down. And there's new research out there that's revealing that the volume of data that we are experiencing every single day, it's clouding our judgment. It's causing anxiety. And in fact, 78% of Americans say that they're getting bombarded with more data than ever before. It's a digital world. So we have a special guest joining us now to talk more about this. Renowned data scientist and New York Times best-selling author Seth Stephens-Davidowitz joining us now to give us a few tips on how we can manage all this data that we seem to face every single day. Seth, good morning. How you doing?
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
I'm glad to have you on here. Let's just talk a little bit more about these findings. It doesn't surprise me that 78% of Americans are saying they're seeing more data than ever before, that from all the different apps, your email, everything's so accessible these days. So let's just talk about the findings a little bit more.
Yes, this is a study I partnered with Oracle, the company, on, and we were kind of seeing how are people using data, and there was a little bit of a depressing finding, which is that people know that data is really important, but they see so much data, they don't know what to do with it, and they basically just feel overwhelmed and find themselves not making decisions because they don't know how to make sense of all the information they're given.
So what role does this data play in our judgment, and also looking at maybe some of the other aspects in our lives?
Well, the role of data could lead to incredible decisions. I mean, we live in an incredible age where there's more information available than ever to help us make decisions, and we're not flying blind. But I guess what this says is that a lot of people feel like they don't know how to make sense of all this information. And, it's not necessarily helping as much as many of us may have hoped in making big decisions. And, people are making more decisions the old fashioned way. They're just throwing away all this data because they don't know how to make sense of it.
So let's just talk a little bit about where all this data is coming from, and then just maybe some ways you can manage it all.
Yeah, so data comes from everywhere now. You talk about your phone, there's more data collected because it's so easy to collect data in the digital world. But businesses, conduct more surveys than ever. They get data from all their different partners on how every ad's performing, what market research, it's coming from basically everywhere. And I think handling it requires a few things. One thing is being a little more comfortable with conflicting information. So I think a lot of people feel like if one data point says this and one data point says that, then, I don't know what to do. And they put their hands up and, I'm not going to use data to make this decision. And I think you have to be more comfortable with uncertainty. We live in an uncertain world, and the world is confusing and probabilistic. So I think being more comfortable with uncertainty is really important.
And like you said, there's so many ways to get data. I think about when you're talking about marketing and all the different ways that you can retrieve information to understand your consumer. And so, like you said, I think in a way it's almost kind of like figuring out what's going to be the most value for you and then focusing on that instead of looking at all of this data that's out there. Because like you said, it can be overwhelming, right?
I think that's right. And I think one thing that also came out of this survey is that people feel like, well, they're not trained as a data scientist. They don't know how to code in R or Python. And they, even hearing those words, they're like, what's Python? So they're not trained to make sense of this information. I think people can make sense of data more than they might imagine. And I think people need to be more confident with their ability to kind of see the data, understand what it means, ask the right questions of it. So I think data isn't as confusing as it sometimes seems to people.
I think this research was really cool. Where can people go if they want to get some more information about some of the things that we kind of talked about?
So oracle.com would be a good place to start.
All right, great. Well, Seth, I appreciate your time and talking a little bit more about this. You have a great rest of the morning, all right?
You too.
And like we were mentioning, it's going to be a great day out there. It's gorgeous outside. This is a look from our High Five camera here in Midtown Memphis. And you got that clear blue sky. No rain to talk about, which is a good thing. But again, we'll be checking in with meteorologist Spencer Denton throughout the morning, keep you updated on what you can expect so you can plan out your week. And that next round of rain, when we're going to see that.
It's bright and sunshiny. You know what else is bright and sunshiny? Talisa Franklin. She is with us with WAVN The Trend. She is joining us.
Hello there. Well, I tell you, my world is always great right here in the 901. Listen, on this weekend, y'all, there's so many great things happening this weekend. Oh my God, there's nothing like the Bluff City. So there is a tea and conversation that is happening and hosted by the great MPD. Austin Peay Station presents a tea and conversation. Listen, it's going to be free food and information and conversations. And it just makes us feel good to see the positive impact that Memphis Police Department, Austin Peay Station, and so many others, but especially right now, Austin Peay Station is doing in the community, because it's going to allow the community to understand that the police is not only just to enforce the law, but they're to encourage you and to let you know that they care. We know all the great, the bad things so much looks like is going on, but there's greater things that's going on in Memphis. And just shout out to MPD. Listen, I'm grateful that we could not live in the city without you. And so if you are in the Fraser area, the Raleigh area, Ed Rice Community Centers, where all roads will lead to, right? For the tea and conversation. Put on your dresses, your shirts, your suits, and your hats, and get all cute and handsome for free food, games, and entertainment. Listen, if you know that you want to attend, it's absolutely free. Listen, just reach out to Officer Naylor as ASAP. I know it says April 15, but if I know how the MPD works, they will compensate you and make sure that you get there, because we really, really want to impact our community with great positive things. And then, y'all, this weekend, shout out to the beautiful, I was called Miss AC and Dr. AC, y'all. African April. African April has been a staple here in our city. And this year, they are celebrating 36 years of doing Cultural Awareness Festival. And listen, this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, it all happens right here in the Mid-South. Listen, Friday, Dr. AC and Lady AC make sure we have so many great things going on. So Friday is always dedicated to our children and our seniors. It happens at Robert R. Church Park. Then there's a parade that goes on. So like at 10 o'clock that morning, Friday, all roads are there from 10 o'clock that morning to 11 o'clock that night. You can go to African April and have an amazing, great time. And then Saturday, is the Health and Wellness Day. Happens again all day from 8 a.m. to 10:30. Yes, it's going to be great. And then Sunday is the International Music Day, where they are honoring Rwanda. And it's going to be at Robert R. Church Park from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. It's always a great turnout. Memphis does an amazing job of supporting the ACEs. They are a staple in this community, and I'm always honored because a lot of times people say, I don't do African April. I do Juneteenth, but the ACEs does the African April. But what makes me feel good that we're all friends and we work together and we have conversations on how that we both can continue to build great cultural events right here in our city. So this weekend, y'all know all roads lead to support Dr. AC and Yvonne AC African April's 36th year anniversary, celebrating Rwanda. It's going to be a great weekend. And so do something for yourself, do something for your fellow man or woman, and let's just have a good time.
You are awesome, Talisa. God bless you and everything that you do each and every day. Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you, brother. Have a good one.
Okay, Andrew Douglas back here in the Action News 5 digital desk. So over the course of the last 2-3 weeks, we have had deadly storms, tornadoes that have ravaged our area here in the Mid-South, in Arkansas, in North Mississippi, and in West Tennessee. So there's so many different questions that some of these storms victims have in terms of, how do we apply for assistance? Where do we go to get it? Who do we need to talk to? Well, right now I have someone in the know when it comes to that. I have Daryl Habish, a FEMA public information officer assigned to West Tennessee, to talk more about what some of those victims can deal with when it comes to FEMA assistance. Daryl, I appreciate you joining us on the digital desk. Tell us what people can know, first and foremost, if they've had damage, if they're dealing with either being in a shelter right now or they've had their home damaged or destroyed. What do they need to do to get FEMA assistance?
Well, thank you so much for having us on today and getting this important information out to survivors of that March 31st, April 1st tornadoes and storms. The very first thing you need to do is make your insurance claim. And I say that because we're not allowed by law to duplicate any type of insurance payments. We can go above and beyond that, but we can't duplicate it. So make your insurance claim. Right after that, call FEMA. You can get in touch with us at 800-621-3362. That's 800-621-3362. You can also apply online at disasterassistance.gov. You can download the FEMA app to whichever, whether it's Apple or Google, so forth, the FEMA app. And that way you can be in constant communication with us. When you do apply, we'll need some very simple things like your insurance information. If you had insurance, we'll also need where the primary residence was that was affected by the storms. We'll also need, how do we contact you today? Where are you at? You may not be, obviously, in your previous home or the damaged property. So where are you at today? You might be in Mississippi, you might be in Arkansas, you could be in Nashville, but how do we get in touch with you? And we may ask, if you choose to have your money or grant money deposited, direct deposit to your bank account, we'll ask for that information too. What's your account number? What's your routing number? How do we, and also, what is your Social Security number? You're going to need one Social Security number within the household. Now, that might be a minor child. So we don't ask, it's not our business, what your legal status is, anything at all. What we need to know is there a person within your household that has a Social Security number? Now, if there isn't, we can point you in the direction of so many volunteer agencies, faith-based organizations that can provide assistance. The important thing to remember here is that this is really a whole community effort. FEMA can't do it alone. So we do have volunteer agencies. We have the Red Cross out there helping folks right now. We're following the lead of the state who are helping folks everywhere.
Yeah. Daryl, let me jump in here and ask you a couple things. And first, I want you to know that we have thousands of people watching us on our Digital Desk stream right now. And it's very simple for those people out there that are listening. If you have a family member or a friend that has had significant damage in West Tennessee from these storms, please, the first thing, as Daryl mentioned, the first thing you need to do is you make that insurance claim and then you contact FEMA either on the phone or online or through the FEMA app. So that is it right there. That's what you need to do. Now, Daryl, I understand that you are in the Memphis area right now. Have you been out to some of the sites? Tell me what you've seen from your perspective. Where have you been?
You know, I am headed up to Tipton County today. I've seen the photos. I've seen everything that's been documented by the state, and I can tell you it looks horrible. It's devastating to people. We want to help folks stay in their communities, and part of that is through rental assistance or temporary housing assistance. If you need a place to live, let us know right now. Everybody deserves a safe, secure environment. You deserve a safe roof over your head. So let us know. We can help you with lodging expenses in hotels. We can help you with long-term, well, not long-term, but with rental assistance for apartments, including a security deposit. If you need things like tools for your job, we can help you with that, but we can't if we don't know you're there. You have to let us know.
Absolutely. I mean, that is such an important point. Now, McNairy County, Tennessee, the Adamsville area had significant damage as well. I'm sure you're well aware. 17 people died in those storms in that area. Have you had an opportunity to go out there, or is that on the agenda? Tell me what.
Well, we have FEMA folks in all of the counties right now. We also have teams that are out that are called disaster survivor assistance teams. And they want to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to apply for assistance. So these teams are going door to door in these counties. Now, their areas where they're located will change daily because they're going through neighborhoods, but they will show up. They will have FEMA gear on. They will have an official laminated federal ID with their photo on it, and they will register you right then and there on their iPads to help everybody. So if you're homebound, if you know of people that are homebound, let's say, or grandma and grandpa or your neighbors, let them know. And let us know that they're out there. Let your local emergency managers know, your police, and so forth. We have to look out for each other in all of these situations. We do have people that are canvassing these counties, so don't be surprised. If they come up to you and say, hi, I'm from FEMA, and for $500, I can get you registered and we'll get you through the process, they're not from FEMA. We will never ask for money. Be careful out there. The fraudsters, the lowest of the low, are out there right now. And they will try to impersonate FEMA to get your money.
Yeah, that's a great point, because we've done several stories already, Daryl, of scammers out there that are trying to scam people, saying that they're from FEMA or some other emergency assistance organization. Is the staff wearing badges so that people can clearly see that they are FEMA representatives? Is there a way that people can say, okay, you're from FEMA because I see your badge?
Yes, they will be wearing badges, and the folks that are going door to door will wear FEMA equipment and FEMA gear. So whether it's a shirt that says FEMA, they may have a vest, a reflective vest that says FEMA. But the most important thing is the badge. And as time goes on, you may receive a call from FEMA wanting to schedule a home inspection. The inspectors who come out will not be in FEMA gear, but they will have a laminated federal ID. And I always tell people, this sounds kind of funny, but you know what? If somebody approaches your door, whether they claim to be an inspector or they're FEMA folks that want to help you register, take a photo of them. Everybody's phone has a camera. It's okay. We don't mind. Take a photo, say, oh, well, I feel better now. If you're not comfortable with it, that's okay. Say, I'm not comfortable, and we'll depart. So if you're a scammer, you don't want your photo taken. If you're FEMA, it's okay.
Yep, that's a great point, Daryl. And I just want to, again, let everybody know who's watching us right now that you have to make your insurance claim, then contact FEMA. You have to go in that order. Then FEMA can help. You can call FEMA, 1-800-621-3362. You can go to disasterassistance.gov or download the FEMA app and get assistance there. Again, Daryl, assigned to Tennessee, West Tennessee, of course, we all know, had so much damage from those storms back on March 31st. And also, if you see someone out there with the FEMA badge, then you know they are a FEMA representative. Otherwise, not so much and not at all. Anything else, Daryl, that we can mention to our viewers with regards to your presence out here, what you and the organization's doing to help some of the victims? Anything else that we can mention before we let you go?
Well, remember that we're not an insurance company. We can't rebuild your home, but we can help you with possibly major repairs. If your home just needs certain things repaired to make it habitable, we may be able to help you with that. There's a lot of assistance out there, not just from FEMA, but also the Small Business Administration. They're on their way, and I know they're here already, but because it's a declared disaster, they can offer low interest, long-term loans to homeowners and renters. If you were a renter that was affected, apply for FEMA as well. So low interest, long-term loans are available for you to actually rebuild and get back on that path to recovery. We know how difficult it is. And believe me, we're going to be here as long as it takes. And as long as we work with the state, the county, your local municipalities, we all want to be in this together and get out favorably on the other end. So you're better and back into that state of normalcy.
Okay, Daryl Habush, FEMA Public Information Officer assigned to Tennessee. We really appreciate your time this morning. Thanks for spelling it out for us. As much as you can, enjoy your time in West Tennessee. I know it's a difficult task, but we got some great people here and, of course, some great places to grab some great food, too. So thanks again for coming on the Digital Desk. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
We are in store for another day of sunshine here across the Mid-South. In fact, temperatures hitting the low 80s, a south wind at 10 to 20, so a little bit breezy but unseasonably warm as we go through the afternoon. But let's talk about the chance for a few strong storms. Not a big chance, but as we go into tomorrow evening, tomorrow night, there may be some of those storms out there, especially in Arkansas, with a slight risk, mainly for wind or hail. And it's really a low end risk. This is a 1 or a 2 on a scale of 1 to 5. So not a huge deal, but something we'll keep an eye on just in case. But ahead of it, it's going to stay nice and warm, even through the day tomorrow as the clouds increase. We'll see a pretty warm afternoon, but those storms start to develop tomorrow afternoon over central Arkansas, and then they push to the east, and we'll see kind of waves of showers and storms as we go through Friday into Friday night. So it may not rain all day or all night, but certainly it's going to come in these waves as that low pressure system moves over us, and then we get colder air filtering into the Mid-South this weekend. Will feel pretty chilly across much of the region. Now let's talk about the exact timing in Futurecast, and I want to show you that rain moving in. So tomorrow morning will be dry, but as we go into the afternoon, here's those showers and thunderstorms. Eastern Arkansas around 5 o'clock. We may start the day with sunshine in some areas, but as we go through tomorrow night, we're all covered up in heavy rain. And again, most of that does not look severe at this point. Then we get a break early Friday morning, but another round comes in as we go through the day, Friday afternoon into Friday night. Again, heavy rain will be the main issue with this batch. Now, how much rain could fall? 1 to 2 inches on average, but I'm not going to rule out 3 inches in a few spots. So we're definitely going to get a big soaking out of this system. And then as we go to the weekend, temperatures struggling to get into the low to mid 60s. Clouds will linger some on Saturday. Sunshine returns on Sunday. And check out the First Alert 7-day forecast. We'll trade the 80s for the 60s over the weekend. Saturday night, 44 low here in Memphis, but there could be some upper 30s. Frost is a possibility on Sunday morning. And then as we go to Monday and Tuesday, only in the upper 60s and another chance of rain by the middle of next week.
Okay, I want to tell you about May is Mental Health Awareness Month. It's a great opportunity for all you parents out there to pay extra attention to how your kids are spending their time online. I'm the parent of 2 older teenagers, and it can be very challenging for so many parents out there to really kind of know where to go, what to do, what's too much, what's too little. It is a tough world out there for the kids and for the parents. Let's bring in someone who knows this topic fairly well. This is Titania Jordan, and she has written a best-selling book, Parenting in a Tech World. Titania, good morning. How are you?
Hi there. Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
I appreciate you being here. So tell me about this book. I love the title, Parenting in a Tech World, and give me some of the underlying issues when it comes to mental health with our teens.
Well, you know, our children are struggling in a way that no other set of children have struggled over the course of humanity. And a large part of it has to do with the screens that are in front of their faces upwards of 8 hours a day, and what's happening on those screens and the people and the issues they're encountering on those screens. And so the rate at which children are experiencing issues related to their mental health are skyrocketing, and we as parents are feeling completely overwhelmed. I can say this not only as the CMO of Bark and author of Parenting in a Tech World, but as the parent of a 14-year-old boy.
So I'm looking at some of these stats here that you have on Bark Technologies 2022 annual report in Tennessee. And they're very startling, Titania. 52% of children in Tennessee involved in some sort of self-harm, suicide situation. 78.9, so almost 80% of children in Tennessee experience bullying, either as a victim or a witness. And something else all these, there's like 10 of them, but 77% engage in conversations surrounding drugs and alcohol. 75% almost encounter nudity and content of a sexual nature. As a parent, and our viewership is thousands right now. What do we tell parents to do?
So first of all, take a deep breath, give yourself some grace, and don't freak out, because it's hard and you're not alone and it's very overwhelming. The second thing to do is don't think not my child. Good kids make bad choices. Their frontal lobes of their brains, that's responsible for the decision-making aspects of their lives, aren't fully formed until their early 20s. And so we need to know it absolutely can be our kids. Good kids make bad choices. We need to be their safe place, right? If we freak out, yell, punish, etc., take away their access, their entertainment, their social sphere, it's not going to bode well for you. They're not going to open up to you, and they're not going to share with you when there are issues. So you need to understand it's happening, speak to them, candidly, frequently, build that relationship with them. It's so critical, and it's so much different than when we were teenagers and with our parents. And then finally, know that most of the issues that are happening in their lives with them or their peers are buried deep within their digital signal. So utilize the free built-in parental controls that come with whatever tech they access. And then please take a look at monitoring solutions like Bark that can alert you when they have encountered these things.
Yeah, that's very interesting that there's that kind of technology out there. So you just said something, Bark Technologies that can alert you or a parent to some issues. Tell me how that works.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, a lot of times we are struggling with just how much time our kids are spending on screens. And many of us hopefully know how to implement time limits and filters, right? But a lot of us don't know that there is tech that can alert you when your child has encountered a bullying situation, an online predator, eating disorder related content, you name it. And that's Bark. So Bark uses AI, that's artificial intelligence, to connect to your children's devices and accounts, text, email, social media, YouTube, you name it, connects, analyzes, and then detects when there's a problem, sends you, the parent or caregiver, a text and an email letting you know, hey, here's what happened, and here's what you can do about it.
What else? So, what about other warning signs? What about other limits that you can put on them without saying, okay, you have no freedom? Because that's a big discussion. Oh, you're taking away my freedoms, blah, 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 blah.
Absolutely. And it's important to note that with Bark, we're not spying on everything or giving parents full access to their kids' everything, like reading a diary. We actually went about it in a way that gives children more privacy because we're only alerting to the problems versus you having to go, get your kid's phone and look through every single thing. So that aside, Bark is a tool, much like a seatbelt or a helmet or sunscreen. It's only part of the equation. You as a parent need to pay attention to those early warning signs like changes in school performance, eating habit changes, increased irritability, inability to concentrate. If your children lose interest in activities or friends that they once loved, physical ailments without cause, like frequent stomach aches or headaches, sleeping too much, sleeping too little, and just general isolation from friends or teammates or family, those are all warning signs. You need to dig further, and don't hesitate to reach out to your child's pediatrician for advice.
That's a good point there, a good suggestion. With all the parents that are joining us here on our digital desk, if you were to give maybe 3 top priorities that they could do today, what would it be?
3 things that you can do today. 1, talk to your kids. Make sure they know you are a safe place. You may not agree with the things they say or the people they hang out with or the music they listen to, but you love them unconditionally and they can come and talk to you about anything. You will help them navigate this rocky road that is growing up in 2023. 2, don't think it's not your child and be their parent. Make sure you have implemented parental controls, screen time limits, filters, and parental monitoring like Bark so that you can get a handle on where they're spending the bulk of their time. And then 3, don't go it alone. There's a Facebook group called Parenting in a Tech World that you can join. It's free. It's on Facebook. It has over 300,000 parents in it. Join it and talk to parents just like me who can help you any time of the day or night.
I love how you spelled it out, Titania. Very simple, easy, user-friendly ideas. Is there a place, you mentioned the Facebook group, any other place that people can go to get some of these tips?
Absolutely. So in addition to the Facebook group, you can also go to bark.us. Everything is there.
Perfect. Okay, Titania Jordan, Chief Parent Officer, author of best-selling book, Parenting in a Tech World. Really appreciate you breaking it down. Such an important and necessary topic that we all need to hear. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Home Home sellers nationwide are coming off a record-breaking run that led to some of the lowest mortgage rates of all time, combined with some of the highest home prices they've ever seen. But 2023, a much different story. The U.S. housing market has been on a steady 12-month decline, resulting in some dropping home values, dramatically rising interest rates. What is the current state of real estate right now? Let's bring in Ryan Rogers. He's a real estate specialist out of Austin, Texas. He joins us on the digital desk. Ryan, give us the current state of real estate with regards to buyers and sellers. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for having me. So what I would tell them for buyers specifically is, even though rates still may be up a little bit, prices still have come down or starting to flatten. So a year ago, if you were having to overpay, especially in our market, let's say $150,000 on a specific piece of property, and even though the rate was maybe 3.5%, you're maybe paying $150,000 less for that property today, but the rate is of course higher. So it all balances out in many situations. But all across the nation, we're still seeing, decreased buyer activity, and in many markets also increased seller activity. So it's different from market to market for sure.
So I'm still trying to understand exactly what, as a buyer and a seller, what you should do first and foremost if you're in the market right now.
So if you're in the market right now as a buyer, I would focus on a couple of things. Is you want to get pre-approved and understand what you're going to be, what your payment is going to be. Do that first, because that's number one, to have your ducks in a row, have your financing in order, and be ready to pull the trigger if you do have one, if you do see something that you like. I always recommend a buyer maybe go and look for a house that's been on the market for a while, maybe 30 days or 60 days, because in this market, no matter where you are, properties that have been on the market 30, 60, 90 days, you have a much better opportunity to get a better price because they've already been able to expose themselves to the marketplace and find out, are they overpriced? And so for the buyer, they can be they can be at a more advantage. It's been on the market 30, 60, 90 days. And go maybe look at those first instead of ones that have been on the market just a year or two, because it will be a more competitive situation. For sellers, my number one advice for sellers is don't price the house too high coming out of the gate. You want to price it very aggressively so that you get as many people through the property as quickly as possible. So be realistic when you set that value in today's market. Another thing that a seller needs to be aware of or ready for is if you have a good buyer with a reasonable offer, and they tend to hesitate a little bit, one thing that you can do is offer a rate buy down. So offering some cost assistance to maybe help them, instead of a 6.5% interest rate, maybe they can buy that rate down to maybe about 6%, let's say. And then the last thing for sellers is don't test the market by starting high and then continuing to decrease the price, because it'll get stale and it's not a good strategy.
Ryan Rogers, real estate specialist out of Austin, Texas. We appreciate the points, the finer points here, and some tips out there for buyers and sellers. Thanks very much. Andrew Douglas back here in the Action News 5 digital desk. People are living longer these days. There have been so many different breakthroughs in aging science, and it's happening every single day. And as a result, people are living longer, healthier lives, not just to 100 years old, but living past 100. And the key is the quality of life is so much better. And I'm honored to be joined by someone who's very familiar with this topic. Dr. Michael Rosen is Emeritus Chief Wellness Officer at the Cleveland Clinic. He's also a professor at the Cleveland Clinic Lerner College of Medicine at Case Western Reserve University. He is also the author of 4 #1 New York Times best-selling books, hundreds of articles. Dr. Rosen, I really appreciate you joining us here in the Action News 5 digital desk. How are you?
I'm great, Andrew, and it's my privilege to join you.
Well, I appreciate it very much. So I understand that you have The Great Age Reboot. That's the latest book that you have coming out, and it's cracking the longevity code for a younger tomorrow. Briefly tell me what this book focuses on and how we can all benefit from it.
Well, it comes out today, and in fact, we've expanded life expectancy, that is public health and medical science, by about 2.5 years every 10 years since 1890. So life expectancy was 41 and 19 in 1890. It's now about 78. But in the next 10 years, because of breakthroughs in the research on aging mechanisms, we expect to get a 30-year jump in life expectancy with an 80% probability. And what that means is that you're not going to be living just longer, but you're going to expand the period between 40 and 60 to between 40 and 90. So it's your most productive time. Let me give you an example. Just donating plasma, which is one of the 14 areas of research, started by giving young blood to old rats. The young blood to the young rat blood to the old rat made the old rat young. Well, now they found all you need to do is a plasma exchange where you donate a unit of plasma. We pay graduate students to do it, so it's not expensive. You donate a unit of your own plasma, and what that does is it forces your body to make new plasma, getting rid of those old proteins and old cells repeatedly means that your muscles will get younger, your pancreas gets younger, your heart gets younger. Everything that's been studied, every organ that's been studied in animals gets younger. Now this is moving to human trials, as all 14 areas are. So in the AMBAR, A-M-B-A-R, if you want to Google it or go to our website at greatagereboot.com, you'll find out about it. In the AMBAR studies, randomized controlled trials in early Alzheimer's disease, you donate 9 episodes of plasma over a 4-month period, and over 15 months, every cognitive function, every form of brain functioning, 12 functions measured, all improved, reversing the cognitive dysfunction of early Alzheimer's disease. So all of these areas are moving into humans, so you're going to live longer but younger. Now, sometime in the future, maybe in 2050 or so, you'll go in the car wash at one end as 90 and come out 40 at the other end. But for now, it'll be organ by organ. That's why it's so important to do things to keep every one of your organs as young as possible.
Can we talk a little bit about some of these scientific breakthroughs? I know you mentioned plasma and keeping your organs healthy, but there must be some new scientific breakthroughs and discoveries that are also helping us live longer.
Well, that's one of the 14 areas, therapeutic plasma exchange. Another is what we call AI, that is artificial intelligence with already existing drugs. So at the Gladstone in San Francisco and at the Cleveland Clinic, they looked at the 4th degree structure of every already approved drug approved by the FDA that were generic. So these are inexpensive. And one of the drugs found by the Gladstone, a simple water pill, Bumex, decreased the attachment of amyloid and tau to brain cells and glia cells, so the brain areas. And when they looked at their 12 million person database, it decreased Alzheimer's risk and dementia risk by 70%. Similarly, and that's a $4 a month drug. So now that's a randomized controlled trial is starting in humans, but it's using another one of these breakthrough areas, if you will, the area of artificial intelligence. Similar thing happened with Viagra at the Cleveland Clinic. When they looked at it, it blocks the attachment of amyloid and tau. Women get Viagra for pulmonary hypertension, men for erectile dysfunction, but it blocks 69% of Alzheimer's disease. So that's another drug being tested to see if it can prospectively, in advance, block dementia. And the two of them are being tried together as well in another study. Let me give you another example. you're really a genetic engineer, because when you stress a muscle, you release a protein, you turn on a gene that makes a new protein. All genes are is protein factories, Andrew, and whether they're on or not are your choice. And what we learned with the Human Genome Project is you control over 80% of which genes are on or not. So your prior guest who was talking about stress, that's right, a posse and purpose change 256 genes that either produce inflammation or decrease inflammation. So when you moderate stress by talking to a friend or by having a purpose and remembering it, you turn off genes that produce inflammatory proteins and you turn on genes that decrease inflammatory proteins. Similarly, when you stress a muscle, you do the same thing. You turn on a gene that produces a small protein that goes to your brain and makes your memory center bigger, so that's why stressing a muscle, doing exercise, is so good for your brain.
I could have this conversation all day long, Dr. Rosen. I really enjoy this type of stuff and looking at ways to kind of age backwards or age younger. If someone's watching this for the first time and they're hearing this and they're kind of interested on, where to begin this this process to slow down aging or age backwards, where do you recommend people begin?
I think they should begin on something they love. So the point of this is to do things you love and that love you back. You may love French fries, but they're trying to kill you every day. You wouldn't marry someone who's trying to kill you every day. You shouldn't eat food that's trying to kill you every day. So find food that you love that loves you back. Similarly, find a physical activity, whether it's playing ping pong or paddleball or just walking or gardening. Whatever you love doing, you want to do and start. And the key is exactly what we said before, having a posse, having friends to help do it. So at our website at thegreatagereboot.com, we have a buddy match on our app so that you can get a friend who will do something you want to do. But that purpose, posse, and then only finding things you want to do that love you back, that are easy for you. So it may be that it is you want to take a supplement that helps you. So you can look at creatine. Creatine is a bodybuilding supplement that young people use to become like Arnold Schwarzenegger. But it also helps preserve muscle in the elderly, and it helps preserve brain function. There are 33 things that we cite in the book where there are 2 studies or more that change brain functioning for the better. So it's pretty easy. You find things you love to do that love you back. So this is really sunshine. It's not castor oil.
I like that. All right. So before we let you go, what kind of things can we do to really prepare to live longer? We all want to live longer, but we want that high quality of life as we age. What can we do right now to prepare for that?
So that's exactly it. Get a posse, get friends, and cultivate your friends. When we're young, it's easy, but as we get older, you need to work at keeping your friendship. Find a purpose. Find something you love doing that you want to do in your mission in life. Then choose some simple things, as we said, whether it is 10,000 steps a day, but it's also step equivalents. Whatever you want to do. So there are a lot of things in the book that you can do that are fun for you. But key, find things that make a difference. You can find them at our website at greatagereboot.com or in the book. There are plenty of them.
Before we let you go, one more thing, Dr. Rosen. The worst thing that people can do when it comes to aging, I know you mentioned stress and anxiety and that sort of thing. Is that the worst? What is the worst thing? Is it a bad diet? What is it in your opinion?
No, well, stress is the greatest ager, but the worst thing is just give up, is to think that it doesn't matter. It matters greatly. You get to control over 80% of which of your genes are on or not, and those genes slow the rate of aging. That's what the Human Genome Project showed. Instead of having 300,000 genes, as we expected by the DNA in your nucleus, you only have 22,500. But which of those genes are producing proteins and which are off? That's what the rest of that DNA does. And those switches, 80% of those switches, you get to control to determine which of your genes are on or off. So giving up is the worst thing because you get to control your rate of aging to a large degree.
I love how you're now predicting that with an 80% probability that 90 will be the new 40 in the next decade. I'm here for that, so really appreciate it. Dr. Michael Rosen, appreciate the conversation. Good luck on this new book, and thanks for joining us on the Digital Desk.
Thank you, Andrew.
We are in store for another day of sunshine here across the Mid-South. In fact, temperatures hitting the low 80s, a south wind at 10 to 20, so a little bit breezy but unseasonably warm as we go through the afternoon. But let's talk about the chance for a few strong storms. Not a big chance, but as we go into tomorrow evening, tomorrow night, there may be some of those storms out there, especially in Arkansas, with a slight risk, mainly for wind or hail. And it's really a low end risk. This is a 1 or a 2 on a scale of 1 to 5. So not a huge deal, but something we'll keep an eye on just in case. But ahead of it, it's going to stay nice and warm, even through the day tomorrow as the clouds increase. We'll see a pretty warm afternoon, but those storms start to develop tomorrow afternoon over central Arkansas, and then they push to the east, and we'll see kind of waves of showers and storms as we go through Friday into Friday night. So it may not rain all day or all night, but certainly it's going to come in these waves as that low pressure system moves over us, and then we get colder air filtering into the Mid-South. This weekend will feel pretty chilly across much of the region. Now let's talk about the exact timing in Futurecast, and I want to show you that rain moving in. So tomorrow morning will be dry, but as we go into the afternoon, here's those showers and thunderstorms. Eastern Arkansas around 5 o'clock. We may start the day with sunshine in some areas, but as we go through tomorrow night, we're all covered up in heavy rain. And again, most of that does not look severe at this point. Then we get a break early Friday morning, but another round comes in as we go through the day, Friday afternoon into Friday night. Again, heavy rain will be the issue issue with this batch. Now, how much rain could fall? 1 to 2 inches on average, but I'm not going to rule out 3 inches in a few spots. So we're definitely going to get a big soaking out of this system. And then as we go to the weekend, temperatures struggling to get into the low to mid 60s. Clouds will linger some on Saturday. Sunshine returns on Sunday. And check out the First Alert 7-day forecast. We'll trade the 80s for the 60s over the weekend. Saturday night, 44 low here in Memphis, but there could be some upper 30s. Frost is a possibility on Sunday morning, and then as we go to Monday and Tuesday, only in the upper 60s and another chance of rain by the middle of next week.
Good morning, everyone. Andrew Douglas in the Action News 5 Digital Desk. Tax day is over. Phew, that was close, all right? So we know that we like spending money as Americans, getting the latest and greatest, and the stress of tax day is now behind us. People may be tempted to get something more, maybe splurge a little bit, but hold the phone, okay? Maybe you should budget more. Maybe you should save more. What are you going to do with this tax refund if you're lucky to get one? Let's bring in someone that's going to help us with that. Stephanie O'Connell Rodriguez, a nationally recognized financial expert and author, is here at the Digital Desk to really talk about maybe some better choices of how to handle that tax refund. And Stephanie, I got to ask, what do you think is the first thing that people should do if they get a refund? Good morning to you.
Good morning. Thanks for having me here. Well, according to Barclays Bank most recent consumer survey, the majority of Americans are actually hoping to use their tax refund to build their financial security. So we've got some pretty good intentions. Now it comes to how do we put those good intentions to build our financial savings, maybe pay down our debt into practice. And I think in order to do that, it's going to look different for everybody. We got to start by taking stock of our own financial picture and see what we own versus what we owe. And if we owe a lot, maybe we got to take inventory of that debt and see what we owe, to whom, monthly minimum payment, and our interest rate on each debt, so we can prioritize what it looks like to build all those minimum payments into our budget, and then make progress on making payments above the minimum payment on the debt with the highest interest rate, and make progress such that we pay off that debt and then the next highest interest rate debt and then the next, so we can get to our financial security as cost effectively as possible.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the sexiest thing to say, hey, wait, you got a big chunk of change. You can't go to Europe or the Caribbean. No, you got a budget. You got to pay off that debt, put some in the savings. I mean, I think that is a great first start. Why is it, though, that so many Americans have just a hard time on saving there? Because we're supposed to have, like, 2 months of cash reserves just in case for emergency purposes, right?
That's right. At least 2 months in emergency savings, ideally maybe 6 months, maybe more. After the pandemic, we had people out of work for more than 6 months. So you always want to think about, what's the financial security I need and the emotional security I need to get through another potential financial emergency. Now, when you're trying to figure out how to prioritize this along with your other financial goals, it's really important to make sure that you're making the most of the savings that you do have. So if you go open up a savings account at your local brick and mortar bank, oftentimes you're getting very, very low interest rates on that savings account. And we always talk about, I want to make my money work better for me. But if you're getting 0.35% interest on your savings, which is around the national average, you're really not getting a lot there. So I like to shop around with my savings like I do for anything else. And I really like online high yield savings accounts, which offer interest rates much, much higher than the average. Barclays, for example, has a high yield online savings account with a very high interest rate. They've got no minimum balance requirements, no monthly maintenance fees, plus the FDIC insurance. And as you mentioned, people are having a hard time building up this kind of savings, and that's because prices have been on the rise. Inflation has been the big story these last couple of years. Most recent numbers, 5% increase year over year on our cost of living. And that's not just the vacations, the exciting, sexy stuff. That's the stuff we need, like our groceries, like our housing payments. And so if you really want to build this stuff into your budget, I like to make saving, debt payoff, investing a line item on the budget, just like I do those other expenses.
I like that. That's a great idea. High yield savings accounts. And you're right. Inflation is still outrageous. I know we had something that said it's down to 5%. Well, it shouldn't be higher than 2%. It's still affecting us. Eggs are outrageous, and airfare, my gosh, flying anywhere is super high. So I know that a lot of Americans are starting to go back in debt as a result of a lot of things, including inflation. What's the best method an effective method, the most effective, to pay down debt that so many Americans are accumulating right now?
Well, the best method to pay down debt is the one you can stick with, right? So the only way to figure out what that's going to be for you is to, again, start by taking inventory of what you owe and build it into your budget as you're able. I talked about a method that's called the debt avalanche, and that's where you prioritize paying off the debt with the highest interest rate first. For some folks, it might be tackling the debt with the lowest balance first, so you can see the progress you're making, and that then motivates you to make progress on momentum toward paying off the next debt. And I know that it's more cost effective to address your highest interest rate debt first, but again, it's what is going to work for you. Even if it costs you more over the life of your loan, if you're going to stick with it, if you see the progress of knocking out that low interest rate debt first, that's fine by me. Just make sure that as you're doing that debt payoff, you also are building your emergency savings, because if something does come up and you do get an unexpected expense like a medical bill or something happens with your car or your home that you must repair, you really want to have that high yield online savings there for you, so you can tap into it and not put it on a high interest rate credit card and add more to your debt.
Just curious, Stephanie, for people out there, how do you find a high yield savings account in your hometown, for example? We're in Memphis.
So typically speaking, you're going to find your high yield savings accounts online. And the reason for this is the high interest rates and the annual percentage yields that you get in those online savings accounts you get them because they have lower costs of operating. If you don't have to maintain the brick and mortar presence, that's a lot of money saved. And that savings gets passed along to the consumer in the form of these lower fees, in the form of these higher rates. And so going to resources like banking.barclaysus.com will give you information about how you can find your high yield online savings account. And it's really, really easy to set this up. I have done it. It's how I saved for my wedding. It's the first account that I opened with my husband. Great way to combine finances, by the way. And it's really a great way to maximize the money that you are saving, because when you do just go to your default bank that's on the street, there's a value to that, but you don't get a lot for your money in the savings account. And often in CDs, the interest rate isn't as high as these banks that have the high yield online savings account. So I definitely suggest comparison shopping, just like you do for anything else.
This is a conversation I could have forever, and I know it's very popular among so many people. It's just, financial literacy out there. So let me ask you this. If we have thousands of people that tune in each and every morning watching us here on the Digital Desk, if you were to give like bullet points, maybe 3 bullet points for someone that's looking to have better financial success in 2023, the tax season is now over, tax day has come and gone. What would you recommend?
I think you have to take stock of your full financial picture first. A lot of the times we think we know what we're bringing in each month because we know what we make annually or hourly, but what that actually looks like after taxes, after deductions, in our take-home pay can be very different. And we want to make sure we're planning off of our reality, not off of our aspirations. And then on the flip side, we got to take stock of our expenses. We talked about taking inventory of what we owe and to whom, but also this has to include those savings contributions. This has to include our essential living expenses, housing, groceries, utilities, insurance, all of that good stuff. And making sure, again, we're dealing with the reality of what we're spending, not what we think we're spending, because there can be a surprising gap between the two. And I think the third piece of this is maintaining accountability. So whatever's going to work for you to keep your finances top of mind, I like to say managing my money is a practice. It's not something I do once a year on tax day, and it's not something I do when there's a crisis, because that's just reactive money management. I want to have proactive money management. And so I think a bit like, I don't go to one yoga class and say, all right, I'm done, I'm fit for life, right? It doesn't work that way. I got to go back and I got to go back, and I get better every time I do it. Same thing happens with my money. I check my money on a daily basis. You don't have to be as much of a money nerd as I am to have a good, healthy relationship with your money, but you can certainly go ahead and checking in on your money once a week to see where it's going, tracking your budget, keeping yourself accountable, and making sure you're maximizing it with these tools like the high yield online savings, CDs, investment accounts, so that you really get your money's worth.
I love it, Stephanie. We've talked about a lot this morning. Where can we go to get some more information, including these tips that we talked about?
Yes, so it is Financial Literacy Month. I know we talked about how important financial literacy is. So you can head to this portal at banking.barclaysus.com. Again, that's banking.barclaysus.com, and go to the Resources tab. There's a lot of tools, articles, information about how to manage these money goals, how to get the most from your money, and how to prioritize when you have a lot of money goals at once.
Okay, Stephanie O'Connell Rodriguez, we really appreciate the conversation this morning. I think we helped a lot of people with this and just thoroughly enjoyed it. Thanks.
I hope so. Thank you, Andrew.
Okay, thank you. All right, so 9:11 is the time right now. Let's talk a little bit about Memphis Shelby County Schools for a minute, because there is still a lot of uncertainty into what's going to happen with the superintendent search. There's a lot of focus on some of the finalists on Saturday. That list came out. The school board is unhappy about it. So what's going to happen? It's on pause right now. We have Bria Bolden giving us an update.
Days after a tumultuous meeting revealing the top candidates for superintendent, Memphis Shelby County School Board members charting the course for what's next in the process.
I'm grateful for all the input, encouragement, and constructive criticism. We must get this right.
Board Chair Althea Green says the search firm recommends either interviewing the candidates, Interim Superintendent Tony Williams, Carlton Jenkins, the superintendent for Madison Metropolitan Schools in Wisconsin, MSES Deputy Superintendent Angela Whitelaw, and Keith Miles Jr., Superintendent of Bridgeton Public Schools in New Jersey, or reopening the search in the fall.
If we were to start it all the way back over in the fall or whenever the case may be, would yield very similar results, I believe, from what I've been told from other colleagues I've sought out advice from.
A majority of board members say they do not want to start the process over, but believe the public deserves more transparency on what criteria was used and will be used to choose finalists, and ultimately the right person for the job. The search firm, paid at least $38,000 taxpayer dollars, did not enforce the board's policy when choosing applicants.
It's been a lack of transparency among board members. It's been a lack of transparency to the community. I will own that. But moving forward, we are going to have to do a little bit better.
Green says after Saturday, several candidates withdrew, including one finalist, former superintendent for Boston Public Schools, Brenda Casales.
Okay, so the board is going to meet next week to discuss policy, whether or not to continue this search, and what qualifications are being used in the search firm for this process. For a full list of current applicants on this story, you can look for this story on our website, actionnews5.com. Now, I want to show you this. These are the qualifications for the superintendent from the board here. Person must possess experience in teaching or school administration for 10 years or a board-approved equivalent, must have an advanced degree with a concentration on educational administration or a board-approved equivalent, and must possess or be eligible for a license qualification for superintendent in Tennessee or a board-approved equivalent. All right, as I mentioned, we will certainly keep you posted on that. Let's talk about West Tennessee, or West Memphis, Arkansas. Another Mid-South superintendent now available here because the West Memphis School Board voted to terminate the district superintendent there that you just saw, Richard Atwill, without providing a reason for the decision. 4 out of 7 members of the school board voted to pay out his 3-year contract. So he started as superintendent June 1st last year. That's less than a year ago. And they're going to pay out his entire 3-year contract. Willie Rhodes will now serve as interim superintendent in West Memphis, Arkansas. We now know more about the investigation into Tyree Nichols' death at the hands of Memphis police officers back in early January. Shelby County District Attorney Steve Mulroy says he requested to extend the deadline to turn over evidence to Civil Rights Attorney Ben Crump and his defense team because his office is still not done collecting evidence. He says the process is taking longer than expected.
I think all parties understood that the initial discovery deadline was an unrealistic one in light of what I've just said. We have turned over everything that we have to the defense as part of the discovery process, but we can't turn over things that we don't have.
Moving on now to the TBI rape kit bill that would have had and forced all rape kits to be tested within 30 days. That bill died after being left out of the budget for the governor. The bill was sponsored by Memphis State Representative Antonio Parkinson. The House bill will not be included in next year's budget, so it was recommended to be passed. It didn't receive the funding, and Representative Parkinson was clearly frustrated.
It's sad and unfortunate, and I'm honestly a bit heartbroken about the fact that we as Tennessee legislature have repeated exactly the same thing that we did in 2014.
Okay, so Parkinson went on to say that this is a slap in the face to all victims of rape across the state of Tennessee. Sanitation workers in parts of Memphis and in Millington fighting for safer working conditions and better pay. It's the second week of a strike for members of Teamsters 667. Again, this is Republic Services sanitation workers that are in parts of Memphis and in Millington. They walked off the job. They started their strike. This came after a sanitation worker was hit and killed by a third-party truck. The president of the union there said they walked off the job after their safety bonus was revoked. The landfill where they did their protest is managed by Republic Services, and workers want better working conditions and better pay.
We're here at the landfill, but no one thought had felt the necessity to reach out to us to have a conversation, just to begin the healing or the fixing process.
Memphis City Councilman J.B. Smiley says he plans to work on legislation to hold companies like Republic Services accountable. I want to show you right now, the American Humane Group has been on the ground in the Memphis area for the past week due to the overwhelming volume of animals that have been displaced after the storms hit March 31st. The DeSoto County Animal Shelter has called in American Humane for emergency assistance. The shelter has been operating at 200% of the capacity due to the influx of animals. So American Humane arrived to help the shelter operate at emergency capacity, setting up temporary housing, crates, kennels, and pens to accommodate some of the animals there. For the past week, American Humane has helped care for approximately 110 animals who have been either injured, as I mentioned, displaced, or separated from their owners during the storm. American Humane has the team on the ground that's provided a number of important services there. I want to bring in right now the president and CEO of American Humane, Robert Ganser. She is joining us on the digital desk right now to talk more about what the organization is doing in Tipton County in West Tennessee to help some of the animals. Robin, good morning for joining. Thank you for joining us this morning. Tell me about the team that's on the ground here in the Memphis area, and have you been in contact with them, and what are they telling you?
Absolutely, Andrew. Thank you so much. First of all, our team's on the ground. We're proud to be in Tipton County today, actually providing emergency relief services for these animals in crisis. These animals have been terribly impacted by the storms. They're looking for their family members to be reunited. Some have been needed emergency medical care, which is very important. But frankly, they've all needed a lot of extra TLC because storms, while they're scary for us humans, they're also quite scary for our animal friends.
You know, Robin, I know that the shelters, a lot of them across our area, are already at capacity because it's puppy and kitten season. How much has this storm really put a strain on some of those shelters? I know there was something that said it was 200% capacity right now in Tipton County alone.
Yes, and 200% capacity that's dangerous levels when you have that many animals that need time, attention, and care. And keep in mind, people locally have also been personally impacted. So you have shelter volunteers and employees who are also impacted by the storms. They have their own needs at home. So that's why American Humane sends our very best, our trained animal first responders to take over those duties to provide a relief valve for these shelters who are operating at such high capacity. Not only is it puppy and kitten season, but you also have animals who have been really lost in these storms who need to be reunited with their family members. So it is dangerous times, but our teams go on the ground. They provide emergency veterinarian care, which is important, a lot of animal enrichment. They've also been able to transport animals to other rescue groups and shelter groups across our great country, to especially those that were identified as stray animals, so they can find a forever loving home. Again, reducing the capacity needs on our local shelters who have been facing so much because of this season of storms.
How many team members are here on the ground? How long are they expected to be here? And we have thousands of people that watch us each and every morning on this streaming channel. Robin, what could they do to help the situation?
Absolutely. Well, we're also, our volunteers and our first responders are also providing pet food emergency drives too. So those who have been impacted by the storms are getting free pet food, free supplies, which is a very important part of our work. So for those listening and watching on today's show, importantly, you can visit AmericanHumane.org to provide for emergency relief funding for our incredible volunteers and staff on the ground. You can also donate at Tipton County Animal Shelter to provide for emergency food and supplies. And, if you're interested, if your heart is open to becoming one of our emergency first responders, sign up for one of our training courses so you can be trained in being one of our humane heroes who go actually out and deploy in times of natural disasters and provide this emergency care. It's an incredible program for those of us who love animals. We need more volunteers who can go at a moment's notice to help our communities and neighbors in crisis.
For all those responsible pet owners out there, what can they do to kind of prepare for these type of things? I know that they're trying to figure out, okay, what can I do so that if there is another storm, God forbid, that they can be just prepared for anything?
Well, we can count on there being another storm. We're just beginning the season of storms. And I'm here today from my home in Florida. We're gearing up always for the season of storms. What you need to prepare for today, and do not delay, we should all have our pet emergency preparation kit. And in that, we should have a mobile crate or carrier for our animals, big enough for them to stand up and turn around. You need to make sure you have 2 weeks of pet food and supplies, their medication on hand. You always need to make sure your pet has a secure collar with ID tags, and importantly, make sure you have your veterinarian records with you. I always tell all pet parents, never, ever, ever evacuate your home without your pet. Take them with you. They are part of our families, and we never want them to be separated, particularly in a time of crisis. But your pet disaster preparation kit is needed today. Be prepared with that so you can run out with a moment's notice with food, water, medical supplies, photos of your current pet, ID tags, and the like.
There's a lot that we have mentioned here, Robin. Where can people go to get some more information, just some bullet points of what they can do?
Visit AmericanHumane.org. We always keep our blogs up to date on what pet parents can and should be doing in terms of the season of storms. So do visit AmericanHumane.org and stay in touch. And also be on the lookout for American Humane trucks. Our volunteers and our rescue trailers were on the ground all season long, particularly in the season of storms. Wave at them, give them your support as they go by to help all of our communities in crisis. They really are the humane heroes this very day.
President and CEO of American Humane, Robin Ganzert, we really appreciate you breaking down some of the facts and figures, safety checklists for pet owners out there, and what people can do to just prepare for any kind of emergency. And thank you so much for what your organization is doing in the Memphis area right now with some of those displaced pets. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone. Andrew Douglas in the Action News 5 digital desk. I want to tell you about some new research that finds nearly half of American workers, okay, so we're talking nearly half, would leave their company if offered 3 months of severance. Okay, this is a Career Optimism Index study that was released just a few weeks ago. I got John Woods on the line here at the Action News 5 digital desk. He is the Chief Academic Officer, University of Phoenix, Executive Director, University of Phoenix Career Institute, to discuss the findings. John, good morning. The first time I heard about this new research, I thought, wait a second. Half of workers would leave their job with just 3 months severance? Don't they have bills to pay? Don't they know that, economic conditions aren't the greatest right now? How did you see these numbers?
Yeah, it's a really interesting statistic, especially since we also found in the survey that a lot of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. So for the exact reason you mentioned, really surprising. A lot of people are also looking or say they're going to be looking for a new job. So a majority of the survey respondents said they're currently scanning the market for a new job or plan to do so in the near term. And in spite of those statistics, as the name of the survey would indicate, Americans are super confident, optimistic about their career and career prospects. So a lot of interesting information for both employers to be aware of, as well as employees.
I mean, John, I saw a report yesterday, I think it was CNBC, that said everything looks like we are heading into a recession, or a recession is going to happen sometime later this year. I don't know what kind of information half of American workers are seeing where they feel very optimistic that in 3 months they'll be able to find a job. I mean, the bills don't stop after 3 months. Can you tell me what the key drivers are with this optimism that they're having?
Yeah, it's as if American workers have sort of a free agent mentality. They're optimistic that they could get another position if they had to. They feel ready to do a job search if needed. They feel like they either have the skills or could attain the skills to get a different job. And this optimism that they have is really coming from themselves more than it's coming from anything employers are doing for them. In fact, there's a dissatisfaction with what employers are doing. So if employers are concerned about turnover, and nearly 75% say they are in the survey, there's some things they need to be doing to better engage their workers and to have a better chance of keeping them.
Yeah, so John, it's interesting, not only in my profession, but across the board, I think you probably have seen it, that a lot of employers are having a hard time keeping talent in-house, and we're just seeing that everywhere. In your best guess, and perhaps maybe this survey gave you some key indications, but what can employers do to retain some of that top talent that they have working for them?
Yeah, turnover is costly. Having open positions is certainly costly. Always having to onboard and train new people is costly. And so proactively, you want to try and keep as many of your people as you can. And the survey indicates that about 70% of workers would stay if some things changed, if employers did some things to try and keep them. And the top three things they indicate, the first is training and development opportunities so that they could upskill, maybe obtain new skills to do additional things for the organization, to get ahead within the organization, maybe tuition reimbursement programs. The second thing is if an organization could deliver for employees a mentorship program. So assigning employees to a formal mentor who could help with career planning, career pathing, kind of take a strategic approach to each employee's growth and development. And the third one is around employee engagement programs, things like employee resource groups, things like mental health benefits. These are the sorts of things that employers are needing to provide if they want to keep their employees engaged, happy, and less likely to leave.
Interesting. I like that list of three there. Let's talk about this, half of Americans out there who would leave after a 3-month severance from their employer. How can employees prepare themselves for their next career move? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, I think ask your current employer or a prospective employer if they offer training, development, upskilling, further education programs, if they have benefits that support those. And then networking is a big one. And then within the networking realm, try and find somebody who could be a mentor. That person can be someone who has the job that you want one day, or has maybe had it and progressed even further in their career. And that person can really help make introductions to other people, provide guidance, suggestions, support. So I think that sort of spells out an always-on approach to thinking proactively about one's career. What are the skills needed? Who do you need to know? Is there somebody who could formally become a mentor and help you along the way? That's kind of the recipe.
John, this is an interesting conversation. Is there any maybe tidbit that we missed that you think is relevant to what we're talking about?
Yeah, I think it's that caution for employers that workers these days more than ever see themselves as free agents. And the cost of turnover, certainly everyone's aware that those are huge, have huge implications for businesses. So the things they're already doing need to be better communicated, or otherwise they're wasted expenses, wasted efforts. And if they're not doing those things, they're going to see turnover because employers are, as the survey indicates, employees are willing and ready to walk, and they are free agents. So, pay attention to the things that workers are asking for. You'll keep more of them, and keep them more happy and productive.
Got it. Okay. We have thousands of people that watch us each and every day here on the Digital Desk, John. Any place that they can go online and kind of hear and look and maybe listen to some of the numbers that we've been talking about and some of the employees' attitudes and employers' attitudes as well?
Yeah, a lot of great insights in this set of data, and the entire survey and all the results and the really making sense of the results. We've placed all that on our website at phoenix.edu/career-institute. I encourage folks to go check that out, whether you're an employer, hoping to kind of fix this issue, keep more of your people, or whether you're an employee and you're thinking about your career and career prospects.
Chief Academic Officer, University of Phoenix, Executive Director, University of Phoenix Career Institute, John Woods. We appreciate this conversation. Very informative this morning. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
We are in store for another day of sunshine here across the Mid-South. In fact, temperatures hitting the low 80s, a south wind at 10 to 20, so a little bit breezy but unseasonably warm as we go through the afternoon. But let's talk about the chance for a few strong storms. Not a big chance, but as we go into tomorrow evening, tomorrow night, there may be some of those storms out there, especially in Arkansas, with a slight risk, mainly for wind or hail. And it's really a low-end risk. This is a 1 or a 2 on a scale of 1 to 5. So not a huge deal, but something we'll keep an eye on just in case. But ahead of it, it's going to stay nice and warm, even through the day tomorrow as the clouds increase. We'll see a pretty warm afternoon, but those storms start to develop tomorrow afternoon over central Arkansas, and then they push to the east, and we'll see kind of waves of showers and storms as we go through Friday into Friday night. So it may not rain all day or all night, but certainly it's going to come in these waves as that low pressure system moves over us, and then we get colder air filtering into the Mid-South. This weekend will feel pretty chilly across much of the region. Now let's talk about the exact timing in Futurecast, and I want to show you that rain moving in. So tomorrow morning will be dry, but as we go into the afternoon, here's those showers and thunderstorms. Eastern Arkansas around 5 o'clock. We may start the day with sunshine in some areas, but as we go through tomorrow night, we're all covered up in heavy rain. And again, most of that does not look severe at this point. Then we get a break early Friday morning, but another round comes in as we go through the day, Friday afternoon into Friday night. Again, heavy rain will be the issue issue with this batch. Now, how much rain could fall? 1 to 2 inches on average, but I'm not going to rule out 3 inches in a few spots. So we're definitely going to get a big soaking out of this system. And then as we go to the weekend, temperatures struggling to get into the low to mid 60s. Clouds will linger some on Saturday. Sunshine returns on Sunday. And check out the First Alert 7-day forecast. We'll trade the 80s for the 60s over the weekend. Saturday night, 44 low here in Memphis, but there could be some upper 30s. Frost is a possibility on Sunday morning. And then as we go to Monday and Tuesday, only in the upper 60s and another chance of rain by the middle of next week.
Okay, back here in the Action News 5 Digital Desk. This is a live shot. I want to tell you about it. It's Memphis Athletics and the Tennessee Department of Transportation. It is a litter campaign that is beginning, and it's started about 5 minutes ago. It goes until 11 o'clock. It is it's basically called the Blue and Gray Cleanup Day. And it's coaches, it's student athletes, it's the athletic department, among other people, students, of course. And the annual event essentially cleans up several roads around the University of Memphis campus. It also cleans up nearby neighborhoods in addition to the beautification of all kinds of Memphis neighborhoods and communities. The aim really is to help awareness and raise that awareness of the litter problem that is currently an issue here in Memphis in the Mid-South. So you got Penny Hardaway is expected to show up. You got various other coaches expected to show up there. This is at Houston Street here. This is the plaza between the rec center and the parking garage. You could see, I believe that is the women's head basketball coach. That's Alex Simmons. She is also a part of this in addition to Penny Hardaway. And the issue is to just clean up this area. And so Memphis Athletics and the and TDOT is joining forces with the annual blue-gray cleanup. So again, these are live pictures from it. You can see Memphis City Beautiful's tent is set up there. It's a beautiful day to be outside and doing something enriching like this to better the community and better yourself, giving back as well. So we obviously have a crew there. We're going to be talking more about this on Action News 5 as they continue to work on the beautification efforts around the University of Memphis campus. Changing the way Tennessee handles the bail process. This is a very interesting issue and something that we've been following here at Action News 5. So Tennessee state lawmakers passed legislation this week that requires elected judges and not appointed judicial commissioners to decide bail for most serious crimes. We have Action News 5's Joyce Peterson looking at how this could impact Memphis and Shelby County.
Each year, more than 100,000 criminal cases are heard in Shelby County. 14 judicial commissioners appointed by the Shelby County Commission help the elected judges with the massive workload by setting bail.
It's a transparency bill and an accountability bill.
State Representative John Gillespie sponsored House Bill 830, requiring judges, not judicial commissioners, to decide bail for the most serious crimes. He did this after high-profile cases in the community, including the suspect in a Whitehaven golf course attack that left the victim with brain injuries, let out on $5,000 bail. And a murder suspect in Millington, the teen victim shot in the head, out on the street, bail just $10,000. Gillespie's bill also requires
if you're out on bail and you commit another crime, then a new bail hearing would have to be set, and the amount would be twice the amount that's normally customary for that offense.
The legislation says judges only can set bail on Class A and Class B felonies like murder, carjacking, and aggravated rape, along with aggravated assaults and felony domestic assault cases. Shelby County Mayor Lee Harris, who holds a law degree from Yale, applauds the effort.
I think most people think that's a pretty good idea. Judges should be setting the bail. Generally speaking, again, we have to kind of have have practical considerations around the volume. And I think that's where the judicial commissioners comes into being. But yeah, I think we'd rather have judges, absolutely.
And Shelby County Commissioner Mick Wright says the bill may kickstart a sluggish legal system. Local judges have been holding very few trials.
I've been in discussions about how do we increase the number of cases that we're processing. Reports have said that we're only getting through 35 cases in a year. And so if they're not doing that, I'm not sure what they're doing.
So judicial commissioners in Shelby County are, in fact, former judges, they're lawyers, they're law enforcement officers, and Representative Gillespie's bail bill headed to the governor's desk for his signature. It goes into effect, by the way, July 1st. Let's take you to Wynne, Arkansas here. The Wynne, Arkansas School District announced the location of the temporary high school for next school year. As you can see, this is drone video of the current high school that was ravaged by the EF3 tornado that hit last month. Temporary campus is going to be located on the west side of Lemon Street across from Wynne Primary School. District leaders say the decision for that location came down to convenience for students and staff. It'll have enough space to hold the needs of high schoolers on campus, according to district leaders. 3-mile human train stretched through downtown Nashville, advocating for stronger gun safety. That's it right there. I want to go back now live to the event that is it is focused on cleaning up trash throughout Memphis and Shelby County. This is the Blue and Gray Cleanup Day, and that is the women's basketball coach, Alex Simmons. Let's listen in for a minute.
So it's great to see the students, the coaches, the administration, everybody here on campus supporting Blue and Gray Cleanup Day, just making our campus as beautiful as possible.
I see it's official that Madison Grace is coming back for the final season. What's that like to have, this hometown talent under your tutelage this year?
It's exciting. Madison and I had lengthy conversations about some goals that she had for herself and what we needed to do for this program and where we wanted this program to go under her leadership. And it's always good to keep the Tennessee girls at home. That's what I said that I was going to do, and she's the first step to doing that.
And speaking of Tennessee, Kelly Harper was here last night. She did mention that there will be some talks in the future about scheduling.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts about that?
You know, we're trying to make it happen right now. I just had a phone call trying to make that happen, so hopefully it won't happen in the future. Hopefully it'll happen now.
Talking more about Madison, have you had any other conversations with anyone else about returning or not returning?
We've had some conversations. Right now, I think we got a really, really good core group coming back. Our workouts have been super tough for the team, but they're responding, playing very well right now. So we're excited about where the program is. Thank you.
Okay, so that is Alex Simmons, University of Memphis women's basketball coach, taking a part in the annual blue-gray cleanup along with Memphis Athletics and Tennessee Department of Transportation. They're going to be cleaning up all day, or at least for a couple of hours, around the University of Memphis campus, some nearby neighborhoods, beautification of various communities, and really to address the litter program and the litter issues that are so prevalent, unfortunately, on many of Memphis roads, Mid-South areas as well. And so, again, this is an annual event, and now Memphis Athletics and TDOT are a part of it. So, again, that was Alex Simmons there, the women's basketball coach for the University of Memphis. Want to tell you about this event that happened, a culinary event benefiting Le Bonheur Children's Hospital. Just won a prestigious award here. Did you hear about this? Local chef Kelly English and Kevin Brewer of Leo Events were in Orlando last month to accept Achieving in Catering Excellence Award. There they are. The event raises money for the hospital, was hosted by Kelly English and Food Network star Claire Robinson last June. It featured signature dishes from more than 30 chefs in Memphis and across the country. Congratulations to them. Well, it happens a lot. You switch jobs once or twice, and now you have money in multiple retirement plans. Rachel DePompa talked with a financial coach about whether or not you should consolidate or just leave that money alone. Take a look.
Maybe you left a job and never rolled over your 401k to that new job, or your company got bought out and you have an old retirement account just sitting there. A lot of people have multiple retirement accounts these days, and there are several different choices that you can make. Cherry Dale, a financial coach with the Virginia Credit Union, says you could just do nothing, leave the money in the old account and let it grow. You could roll that money from your previous plan into your new 401k. If your new company doesn't have a 401k, you could open a Roth IRA and roll it into that.
So that's an individual retirement account that you do not need an employer to have that type of retirement account.
If you do any of these options, Dale says you need to consider the fees for these plans, and you need to know your comfort level in managing an account like this.
You've got to just make sure if you've got multiple retirement accounts that you are taking care of everything and that you are keeping things like your beneficiaries up to date, contact information up to date as well.
If you get remarried or you have kids, any major life event, you want to look up your accounts and update your beneficiaries. Now, there are pros and cons to everything, so if you feel like you need a little help in decisions like this, you could also contact a financial advisor. With This Watching Your Wallet, I'm Rachel DePompa.
MRI yesterday definitely showed a re-aggravation of his hand injury that he had in the Milwaukee game, dealing with some pain, some soreness. Symptoms are slightly improving from the other night. He's going to be a game-time decision. He's going to come in, get working in the morning, test it out, see how he's feeling. He's progressing to dribbling and shooting as much as he can. As I say, he's got some pain he's dealing with, so it's kind of a tolerance thing. But he's got some stiffness in his hand that he's kind of slowly getting through, but we'll see how he wakes up tomorrow.
Yeah, hopefully he can go. If not, Tyus Jones, certainly a very capable backup at point guard. Again, Grizzlies-Lakers tip-off 6:30 tonight. And then after that, the series will then shift over to Los Angeles. And, of course, we'll be sending our crew to Los Angeles to cover the series there for you. Stay tuned for all the highlights later tonight on Action News 5, beginning at 10. And speaking of Ja Morant, guess what? The long-awaited release for Ja 1 Day 1. Expected to go on sale this morning. $110. Yep, new sneaker honors the superstar's hometown roots, Inner Circle. It includes a handwritten note, sold the shoe there. If you want a pair, make sure you contact the shop that sells sneakers to you. All right, you see this? This is a picture of Jasmine Carson keeping busy with her visit back to her hometown. She made a visit to the Memphis mayor's office there, Jim Strickland, giving her a key to the city. Remember, she, on Monday, visited Central High School, where she went to school, and she won that women's basketball title with LSU earlier this year. She actually tweeted about it, saying, "Got a key to the city today. Thanks." Well, we are about 2 weeks away from Memphis in May. Perfect timing for an update on Tom Lee Park renovations. So the Memphis River Parks Partnership says the park is about 80% complete. Now, there were a lot of critics of this renovations. A lot of people say, hey, look, it condenses, it shrinks Memphis in May's areas for the events, all these renovations. It also takes away some of those beautiful shots of the Mississippi River on Riverside Drive, and it has put things and items on the river area, the Tom Lee Park area, that people don't normally want to see. But Memphis River Parks Partnership, which is funding all of this and is a part of the renovation, say, hey, look, Memphians are going to be loving this renovation. Take a listen.
Hearing the reactions of people to say, this is so much better than I could have expected, it's way more than I could have ever believed possible in Memphis, that's exactly what we've been aiming for.
Memphis River Parks Partnership plan on celebrating the grand opening of Tom Lee Park Labor Day weekend. I want to take you now to a ceremony. It is the ceremony to remember the Oklahoma City bombing. That was back 1995, some 28 years ago. That is when 168 lives were lost when Timothy McVeigh detonated a bomb outside the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City. You can see the memorial there. You can see people speaking here, remembering the lives lost, remembering that horrible, horrible day. There will be, during this program here, 168 seconds of silence the moment the bomb exploded. And it's in remembrance of each of the lives that were lost, including small children that day. I think a lot of people remember where they were during that time. Just an awful, awful situation that, again, happened 28 years ago today. Okay, switching gears here, let's talk about the 6th annual Mempho Music Fest. Headliners for this year's festival, the Black Crowes coming to town. My Morning Jacket, dozens of other artists. Mempho Music Fest will take place September 29th to August 1st at the Memphis Botanic Garden. All right, in a couple of days, thousands of people expected to attend a popular facility here that's been closed since the fall of 2019. We're talking about the amphitheater at Snowden Grove. Kim Clark gives us a look.
Workers put the finishing touch on renovations at the Bank Plus Amphitheater at Snowden Grove, just off Getwell in South Haven, Mississippi. Work that began in late 2020.
It was very different than what you see behind us. Only the green seats were here previously.
Todd Bastry is executive director of the Landers Center and the Bank Plus Amphitheater, which originally opened in 2006 as the Snowden Grove Amphitheater. Mastery is also overseer of all the current changes at the amphitheater, which included adding gray seats in what used to be the lawn area for more casual seating.
We found from doing our research around the country and here regionally that amphitheaters had moved more to a more permanent seating and less lawn.
The change gives the amphitheater now roughly 8,500 permanent seats, 10,500 if you count the pit area and what's left of lawn seating.
We also added a number of premium experiences. There's 3 different levels to our premium experience. Each one of them have access to the brand new Premium Lounge, which is a restaurant quality indoor facility.
The Premium Lounge is also now air conditioned.
So when it's the middle of August, you've got an opportunity there to go inside, get something to eat or drink, and take a little break from the weather.
According to Mastery, the changes were not only about seating, but also about increasing the guest experience in general.
But we doubled the restrooms here, which is important to everyone. Previously, there were 0 permanent concession stands. So we added in a huge commissary and then 3 other concession stands surrounding.
Another major improvement, the entrance and exits for concert goers.
There's 1 main entrance. Now we have 3 entrances into the amphitheater.
In addition to the Snowden Lane entrance, there's now one off Getwell and Nail Road. There's also an added benefit for the bands that perform on stage.
They had to step off property to have their catering. We now have a catering area specifically for the artists, and I know they'll be happy about that.
According to Mastery, the changes at the amphitheater mirror what's happening nearby.
Everything around us is continuing to grow with the ballparks, the soccer area, Silas Square across the street. There's now so much to do. So when you come, you're headed here, could be at 3 o'clock in the afternoon for a Saturday show, to spend some time taking in the sights and sounds, getting something to eat, getting something to drink, checking out retail stores, then coming over here, taking in a show. Maybe you're letting the traffic get out and you're going to have something to eat before you head home.
Tickets for 9 shows are already on sale, and one of the first bands includes a hometown favorite.
Ingram Hills lead singer is Justin Moore, who is a local kid from here, from the Mid-South. He previously worked here before. Ingram Hills, a local band. It just kind of a full circle.
Tickets for a 10th show at the Bank Plus Amphitheater will go on sale in May.
Right now, the season looks to finish potentially with the Goo Goo Dolls in September, but we do have more that we're going to announce. We're going to have more shows coming. Again, everything that we've done here really is to enhance the guest experience. The music, the sound that was here has always been very good. We wanted to make sure that everything outside of that was just as good as the sound and the bands that everyone was hearing.
The Bank Plus Amphitheater at Snowden Grove, growing with its South Haven neighbors and making guests feel more at home. In South Haven, Kim Clark, Action News 5.
Cyber threats, they can be catastrophic for so many businesses and for individuals, causing disruption in essential services and breaches of national security secrets. So what are the cyber threats and what can we do about them? Let's talk to our Senior Vice President here for Cyberspace and National Security Policy at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, Chris Roberti, for insights on how to combat cyber threat issues. Good morning, Chris. How are you?
Good morning, Andrew. I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you being here. What do businesses and individuals really need to know about the current cybersecurity threats? We hear all about all kinds of threats, and they evolve over time. What do we know about the latest threats?
Well, we know that these threats are significant, that they are pervasive, and that the people perpetrating them are very, very sophisticated. What people and companies need to know is that anonymity is not a defense. Companies large and small can all be victims of significant cyber attacks. And so once you recognize that there's a problem out there and you could be a potential target, you could take some steps to try and make yourself a harder target to prevent yourself from being victimized.
What are the most persistent cyber threats for businesses and individuals? You know, we hear all kinds of different ones, phishing emails and texts and robocalls, that sort of thing. What do you see as the most persistent cyber threats out there?
Sure. So those things that you mentioned are very common vectors on how an attack can be perpetrated or initiated. But in terms of the type of attack, we're seeing ransomware, which is, I'm sure many people are familiar with that. There's been lots of discussion about ransomware attacks over the last couple of years. What ransomware is a cyber attack coupled with a demand for payment. And often what the actors will do is encrypt a company's files and then threaten to keep them encrypted, so preventing the company from getting access to them unless and until the company makes a payment to these criminals, which can be very debilitating. The average downtime for ransomware attacks is about 3 weeks, and the average time it takes to recover is over 280 days. So many companies, small companies particularly, can be really impacted by this. The second attack we'll talk about, or type of cyber attack, is what's called a business email compromise, where attackers make their way onto a company's systems, observe how the company operates, and then create or generate a fraudulent payment request to a vendor or other entity, such that the company ends up paying out this fraudulent claim and doesn't even realize it until later. So those are both very common threats, but we can't put aside also cyber threats that are cyber attacks that are targeting stealing data, stealing intellectual property for espionage purposes, or even destructive purposes. So there's a range of threats out there.
It sounds like it. I mean, it just sounds awful. Give us some of the best defense tips and suggestions.
Sure. Yeah, I don't want to be all doom and gloom. So there are things that individuals and companies can do to protect themselves and really limit the likelihood that you'll be victimized. So the first, as I said before, is recognize that there's a problem, that being small or anonymous is not a defense. Second thing you can do is ensure that you are enabling multi-factor authentication. So it's not just a password, but a password plus another thing that would cuts down significantly on successful cyber attacks. Another thing companies can do is back up their data and encrypt it. They can be they should be downloading and patching their systems and updating their systems regularly. And they should be training their employees to avoid those kinds of emails that you mentioned earlier. Something like 87% of successful cyber attacks come through those types of spear phishing attacks or attempts. So if companies and if employees can figure out how to detect these things and avoid them, that goes a long way. And then the last thing I'll mention is they should be building relationships with their local FBI field office or Secret Service field office or cybersecurity and infrastructure security agency official from the Department of Homeland Security.
Our parent company, Gray TV, seems to always send us about every month or so, every few weeks, different security training, different updates on what to watch out for and what to find suspicious in order to guard against some of these threats. What are other people doing on a local level and on a national level to really kind of protect us from these threats?
Andrew, that's great to hear that your parent company is doing that, because that is really important. Because if people have it in the top of mind that threats can come to anybody within an organization, that really helps. That builds a collective defense that we all need. And then so going out from individual companies, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce plays an important role as connective tissue between the government and the private sector on cyber policy issues, whether that be pushing out information or influencing legislation. We play an important role there. At the federal government level, there are very dedicated professionals working to stop cyber criminals, to go after them on the law enforcement side, also to work with the private sector, which there's also has very sophisticated capabilities to defend networks and ensure that cyber attacks are not successful, and then also on remediation side. So there is we call it government and private sector operational collaboration, which is really important and critical because neither side can do it alone. And this translates all the way down to the state and local level as well.
people watching right now might want to look more at some of the resources and some of the tips, suggestions, and ways to stay safe. Do you have any resources for some of our viewers, Chris?
Sure. Yeah, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, we've got a lot of stuff on our website. You can go to uschamber.com/security. There's a link for cybersecurity. Also, the Department of Homeland Security has some great resources at CISA.gov. That's CISA.gov. And then the FBI as well, through their Internet Crimes Complaint Center, IC3.gov. There's lots of resources out there. Click away. That'll help people figure out how to make themselves a tougher target, but also what to do if they find themselves victimized.
Okay, Senior Vice President for Cyberspace and National Security Policy, U.S. Chamber of Commerce, Chris Roberti. Thanks so much for your insight. We appreciate it very much.
Thanks for having me, Andrew.
Okay, Earth Day is this Saturday. It's April 22nd, more than 50 years of Earth Day. Can you believe it? Well, let's talk about Earth Day because we all want cleaner air and cleaner water. The issue and where many people differ is how do we get there? Let's bring in Daphne Moore. She is a communications director for the Walton Family Foundation. She joins us on the digital desk. Good morning, Daphne. Tell me about how we get cleaner air and cleaner water.
Hi, good morning, and thank you for having me. At the foundation, we believe that as Americans, we are experiencing climate change largely through water, as you mentioned. And, that takes many different forms. We are seeing droughts and fires in the West, flooding in the middle of the country, sea level rise along our coast, and I think everywhere severe weather. And so it's really bringing it home, and we're seeing the impacts in our own backyard. One of the things that we are doing, a step that we are taking, is really trying to help provide more information to local communities, not only about the impacts, but also about potential solutions. And we just finished up a poll with Morning Consult that really looked at expectations that Americans have about good fact-based journalism on climate change. Again, not just the impacts, which can be overwhelming, but also solutions. And we found that about 3 in 5 Americans are really looking to news organizations for the information. And there's a challenge. News organizations are being asked to do a lot more with a lot less. And so that's why foundations like ours are providing philanthropic support that not only helps create the capacity for this type of information, but also resources and training, because these are complex topics and it takes talent to really break it down to understand the local impacts.
Daphne, I couldn't agree with you more. These are complex topics and complex solutions as a result to some of the issues here. I looked at a Pew Research poll that came out yesterday, and climate change is such a divisive issue. Democrats look at it completely different than Republicans. It's very much a partisan divide. And then the other issue that came out of Pew was that 37% of Americans say climate change is not a top priority or is a top priority. That means other people are looking at economy and healthcare costs. How do we bridge the gap? How do we get people together to all agree on some of those issues that I initially brought up, which is clean air and clean water, because everyone can agree with that, right?
Exactly. We all need water. And that is why we focus specifically on water at the foundation, because as humans, we need it, but also our economies need it. And we believe that nature and people can thrive together, particularly when we're looking for creative and innovative solutions, people that are being bold in their belief that there is reason to have hope and that we can make a difference in local communities. One example that I love that we've supported is along the Mississippi River, where we have seen, the nutrients that are coming downstream, but also the land loss along the coast, and efforts that are allowing the river to flow the way it was originally designed to do, and taking, the nutrients and sediment, our fancy way of just saying dirt, and allowing the river to actually rebuild land, which is of great benefit not only to nature, but also to the communities that live along the coast and are impacted by land loss.
So we have Saturday, we have Earth Day, a big event to really kind of focus on what we can do to make our environment, to make our planet safer and better, and maybe just kind of get towards that goal of better water, better air, cleaner renewable energy out there. Is there anything that the Walton Family Foundation is doing to maybe kind of just recommend people do on this Earth Day on Saturday?
I mean, I think one of the most important things that we all can do is become informed and look for good sources of fact-based information that go beyond the impacts and just the overwhelming nature of the challenge, but that also talk about solutions in our local communities that we can come together and, like you mentioned, across lines of difference, because we all care about where we live. We care about the future for our children, and having water and air are essential not only to the planet, but to us as people and to communities and economies.
Where can people go to get some more information?
Yeah, I certainly local news organizations, but I'd also want to recommend our website, which is thewaltonfamilyfoundation.org. Some great stories about what people are doing in local communities.
Okay, Daphne Moore, Communications Director with the Walton Family Foundation. Appreciate your time, Daphne. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
We are in store for another day of sunshine here across the Mid-South. In fact, temperatures hitting the low 80s, a south wind at 10 to 20, so a little bit breezy, but unseasonably warm as we go through the afternoon. But let's talk about the chance for a few strong storms. Not a big chance, but as we go into tomorrow evening, tomorrow night, there may be some of those storms out there, especially in Arkansas, with a slight risk, mainly for wind or hail. And it's really a low-end risk. This is a 1 or a 2 on a scale of 1 to 5. So not a huge deal, but something we'll keep an eye on just in case. But ahead of it, it's going to stay nice and warm, even through the day tomorrow as the clouds increase. We'll see a pretty warm afternoon. But those storms start to develop tomorrow afternoon over central Arkansas, and then they push to the east, and we'll see kind of waves of showers and storms as we go through Friday into Friday night. So it may not rain all day or all night, but certainly it's going to come in these waves as that low pressure system moves over us, and then we get colder air filtering into the Mid-South. This weekend will feel pretty chilly across much of the region. Now let's talk about the exact timing in Futurecast, and I want to show you that rain moving in. So tomorrow morning will be dry, but as we go into the afternoon, here's those showers and thunderstorms eastern Arkansas around 5 o'clock. We may start the day with sunshine in some areas, but as we go through tomorrow night, we're all covered up in heavy rain. And again, most of that does not look severe at this point. Then we get a break early Friday morning, but another round comes in as we go through the day, Friday afternoon into Friday night. Again, heavy rain will be the main issue with this batch. Now, how much rain could fall? 1 to 2 inches on average, but I'm not going to rule out 3 inches in a few spots. So we're definitely going to get a big soaking out of this system. And then as we go to the weekend, temperatures struggling to get into the low to mid 60s. Clouds will linger some on Saturday. Sunshine returns on Sunday. And check out the First Alert 7-day forecast. We'll trade the 80s for the 60s over the weekend. Saturday night, 44 low here in Memphis, but there could be some upper 30s. Frost is a possibility on Sunday morning. And then as we go to Monday and Tuesday, only in the upper 60s and another chance of rain by the middle of next week.
1 in 5 people who have been prescribed opioids to manage pain from surgery find themselves struggling to stop taking the drugs long after their physical recovery. It is very powerful, and it is a very addictive drug. It's very much still a crisis across this country and across the Mid-South. This morning in my Best Life report, I told you about this shift, brand new shift away from opioid painkillers as a procedure. Take a look. Total joint replacement, tummy tucks, lung surgery.
Those are kind of at the top of my list of very painful procedures.
But any surgery can be painful to recover from. Dr. Michelle Humadian is a pain management expert at Ohio State. She's leading an initiative to minimize opioids for pain relief. She says patients should start preparing before surgery by taking acetaminophen at home.
We kind of load that up in the system in the day or so before surgery, and then that helps us have to give less opiates for their pain control.
During surgery, doctors use numbing medicine that blocks the pain transmission to the brain and spinal cord. Then, after surgery, patients can take over-the-counter acetaminophen or ibuprofen and use an anesthetic pack like lidocaine.
Other types of interventions like heat, ice, elevation, those types of things, those can't be underestimated.
Doctors say data shows non-opioid pain management results in less nausea and shorter hospital stays.
Where we used to have patients that would require an overnight stay or two that are going home now after surgery.
On that, for more information on that, you can go to our website, actionnews5.com. More cars and trucks are driving with their headlights and taillights off at night. Did you know about this? Might be one of those drivers, actually. You might be. You don't even realize it. So Brendan Keefe, find out why there are so many lights out on the roadways at night. Take a look.
When the sun goes down and the lights come up, the brightest objects compete for our attention. But the greatest danger is what's lurking in the shadows. Do you see it? Look closer. No headlights.
Driving in the wrong lane and without headlights. Sitting on the interstate with no headlights on.
Across the nation.
A vehicle with the headlights out.
The truck didn't have its headlights on.
Phantom vehicles are causing crashes and taking lives. Why are we seeing more phantom vehicles now? It turns out the answer has been right under our noses this entire time. The modern instrument panel. It's always on, even when the headlights are off. Night or day, day or night. The gauge cluster and radio are always lit in car after car after car after car, manufactured in the last 10 years. Combined with the daytime running lamps, there are now multiple visual cues that the lights are on, even though the headlights and taillights are dark. Before dashboards went digital, analog gauges stayed dark when the headlights were off. Not anymore.
Most of our vehicles have technology where the headlights are automatically on as a default when you start up the vehicle.
Frank Weissman is with Atlanta-based Porsche North America.
Headlights are on through the auto function. I can actively turn them off here, get the little message that I've done that, but as soon as I move off again, or above 6 miles an hour, headlights and taillights come back on.
So even if the driver turns the headlights off, they will come back on automatically while they're driving?
Correct. And then if you wanted to turn them off while you're driving, you can't. And I can't turn them off even if I wanted to.
Porsche now installs these headlights on every new vehicle that has an always-on dashboard. Is there ever a time where there are headlights on but there are no taillights on?
On these newer vehicles, no.
And now it's the law in Canada. All new cars sold since last fall must have taillights that come on with the daytime running lamps, or a dashboard that goes dark when the lights are off, or auto headlights on by default. Many new cars now sold in the U.S. were designed to meet the new Canadian standards. This is a new Ford. Turn the lights off, and the next time you start the car, the headlights default back to auto. New GMs have a spring switch, flipping back to auto when you restart the car.
So what we're getting the benefit of is essentially German engineering and Canadian regulation.
But the average car currently on our highways is more than 12 years old, which means we'll have to be on the lookout for phantom vehicles for another decade or so.
Okay, Andrew Douglas back here in the Action News 5 digital desk. I want to go now to one of our friends who gives us such great knowledge when it comes to getting a job, looking at the job market, resume help. Angela Copeland, she's Vice President of Recruiter.com. Angela, good morning. How are you?
Hey, thank you for having me.
No, I appreciate you making time for us because it is such a workers market out there. Employees really have a lot of options right now beginning in 2022. And we want to talk about resumes and the best way to let your resume kind of speak for yourself, stand out, and some of the mistakes that people make out there. But let's begin with making that resume stand out, Angela?
Well, this is such an exciting time to be looking for a job, but the thing that you need first is you need a resume. So even if you don't need a job today, but you're thinking sometime in the next few months, get started and have one ready. I think that is the first mistake that people make, is that they wait until someone says to me, email me your resume, and then they've got to start from scratch. And it's just like a total panic trying to get it together.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, no question. And so once you get that resume developed, what are some ways, I guess, that you could enhance that resume?
Sure, absolutely. I think the very first thing is you should do the resume yourself. Very often people want to hire someone to write their resume for them. It's a very attractive option, right? Because it's kind of a pain. You're shoving years of experience into 1 or 2 pages, and that's what I would suggest is 1 whole page or 2 whole pages. But I've noticed that when people hire out their resume writing, sometimes there will be errors in it. So you really want to write your own resume. You want to pay very specific attention to things like spelling, because if you do have spelling errors, there's a chance they will just kick you right out. I would also think about the fact that a lot of hiring managers or HR professionals, they will read what is at the top of the first page first. And so really focus your energy on making that portion of your resume look good. Also, if there's a particular job you're applying to, closely read the job description and make sure that anything that's mentioned in the job description that you know how to do is also included in your resume. So the words that are in your resume are just as important as the actual sort of format and look and feel. I mean, it's like you wouldn't show up to an interview in shorts and flip-flops the same way that you want your resume to actually look polished and like you've put some work into it.
What are your thoughts, Angela, on cover letters?
This is such an interesting question. It's very controversial. A lot of people want to say that cover letters are no longer a thing. But I will tell you, when you're applying for a job, if there are 2 equally qualified candidates, of course, they're both going to have a resume. And if one has a cover letter, that one will be given special treatment. And in other words, the cover letter is a chance to really explain why you're a good fit for the job. And that's your chance to sell yourself, because when a hiring manager or a recruiter read through your resume, they're sort of figuring out why you're a good fit. Like, they're having to piece it together. But the cover letter is your chance to really explain it to them. So I would take the time to do a cover letter. You want to explain why you're interested in the job, why you're a good fit, and do summarize some of your background. So you will be repeating some of the things that are on your resume on your cover letter.
Yeah, great advice there. Are there, and you mentioned, making sure that you do the resume yourself so you get a nice, accurate depiction for that prospective employer. Are there any structures out there, Word, do they have any advantages when it comes to building that resume? Is there any place you can go to really kind of use, some software?
It's a good question. So the way that your resume looks, I really think it depends on the industry that you work in. If you work in a traditional industry like engineering, I would go with a much more straightforward look to your resume, like a more old-fashioned look. If you work in sort of a hip industry like marketing or possibly sales, I would look for something that's more stylized. So Microsoft Word does have templates. Interestingly enough, the website Etsy.com also sells resume templates that are really quite stylized and nice if you're working in marketing, for example. So there are places that you can look for these stylized, resume formats, but I would not use them unless you're working in an industry that is especially sort of hip and cool.
So on one of the websites, and I'm just looking here, my producer and I were checking this out, it mentioned something about the possibility of maybe adding hobbies or interests in a section on your resume, just to kind of, go with that work culture that a lot of corporations and a lot of different offices are going towards. What are your thoughts on maybe putting interests and hobbies on that resume?
It's a good question. There have been times in my own career where I have included hobbies and interests, and there have been times where I've absolutely left them off. So I would say it really is a case-by-case basis. I would think about why you're adding them. So for me, I started out, my undergrad is computer and systems engineering. I started out as a computer programmer. And when I was trying to get employers to see me as more than someone who writes computer code, I started including hobbies. But of course, I picked hobbies that were interesting, like travel, that could get a conversation going. Another potential place to include hobbies is if you're looking to transition away from your current industry, and if in some way your hobby aligns to the industry that you want to move into. So it's both really, am I trying to get an employer to just see me differently, or am I trying to get an employer to understand how I might fit into their industry?
Excellent, excellent. Now, there's something else when it comes to follow-up, because a lot of us, want to hear right back, right away, on demand. What's the employer? Are they interested? What do they think of this? What are your guidelines for following up after you send your resume?
That's a good question. I would say if you know who to contact, feel free to send them an email. Or if you've had an interview, send them a thank you email afterward. And, every, say, 2 weeks or so, it's appropriate to send a follow-up email. I would not send too many because you may be sort of labeled as sort of difficult or annoying, but you do need to get an answer. I would say don't assume that you will get a job, no matter how qualified you are for it. If you really need a new job, keep looking until a company actually gives you an offer, because anything could happen. Like, for example, they could put the position on hold completely, or the hiring manager could leave the company and they could decide not to hire the position, or they could decide to hire in the future. So just keep looking until you actually have a job offer in hand.
Okay, let's talk now about some of the mistakes that people make on those resumes. We've talked about the enhancements, now things that are completely wrong.
There are a number of things that people can really work on their resumes. One of the big ones I would say is look at the email address that you're using on your resume. So a lot of folks like to use email addresses like AOL. And what that communicates to the employer is that you're a bit out of date in terms of technology, and you don't want that being the thing that you're communicating. So look for something like a Gmail email address that would be a good fit. You also, when it comes to email address, you want to use an email address that is related to your name. So not a hobby, not like horseback rider at AOL.com. And you also don't want to include anything in that email address that is an indication of your age. So many people will put their birth year in their email address or the year they graduated from high school. You want to steer clear of any of that information. I would leave off a photo. Do not include a photo of yourself on your resume. That is done in some countries, but in the US, people do not include photos on their resume. It's an unusual thing to do. So those are a couple of areas that I would start with. Again, keeping things honest and consistent. So look for errors that are spelling errors, but also make sure that you're not fibbing, because it could get back to your previous employer, and that's not how you want to start out with any new job.
Okay, so we got the resume all situated, all nice and pretty for everybody. Then you have to do something about your social media, right? Because a lot of times when we'll hear somebody or we'll meet somebody, they'll immediately go and see if they can find them on social media, and you want to make sure that's legitimate, right?
Well, so yes, it's interesting because, 20 years ago, this was sort of a non-issue, but we've all been posting for the last so many years on Facebook, for example. And so there's a huge history of information available about us on the internet. If you are starting to launch a real job search and you're starting to have interviews, I would go in and at a bare minimum, I'd look at your privacy settings. Look and see what could someone see on your Facebook, on your Twitter, on your Instagram if they were not friends with you. Because you want to be sure that anything public really represents the brand that you're putting forward in the job interview. I do think this is a real issue. Many times you talk to job seekers and they assume that a company would never Google you and would never look things up about you, but they do. They really do. So you want to do it first and make sure that what's out there really represents you in the best way possible.
Okay, Angela, all great advice.
I'm not sure I
very
understand.
effective here. Can we, anything else you want to mention before we let you go regarding resumes, do's, don'ts, anything?
I think the biggest thing is get started now. This is such an exciting time to be looking for a job, as you mentioned. And the last thing you want is to really be caught behind the 8 ball, so to speak. So update your resume. Keep things quiet, but ask a close friend to proofread your resume for you because they will find errors that you may have missed.
All right, Angela Copeland, Vice President, Recruiter.com. Great advice. We appreciate it very much. And thanks so much. Look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thank you.
All right, college AP exams start May 1st. Do you remember taking those AP exams? They really do matter. A lot of people say, they don't matter. No, they do. And it's a big deal, and it's something that we should talk about with our friend David Blobom joining us on the Action News 5 digital desk. Now, we knew David way back when, but he has gone national now. He's a recognized expert in the entrance exam, college admission industry. He's the director of outreach for the National Test Prep Association. David, welcome back to the Action News 5 digital desk. How are you?
Thanks. Doing great. It's great to be here. And actually, Angela's segment also applies to high school students, so they definitely need to check their social media as well.
Oh, yeah, Angela's fantastic, and I agree with you. Yeah, you can apply that in so many different ways. But, the AP exams, they start May 1st. So I've had kids that are dealing with that, and they've dealt with that in the past. What do you tell people? Because a lot of people, well, they don't matter, but they really do, don't they?
Yes, so they matter in some ways that students don't think about because they're in high school and it matters for college. So there's 3 main ways that AP exams help students. So if you can get AP credit in college, then you can take fewer courses in college and have an easier time. Or you can potentially graduate early and save money. Or you can get rid of those core requirements early and then take more advanced classes in your interests. The less important usage of them is for admissions and actually getting accepted to the schools. It's really only the top schools that look at AP exam scores like that, but that's a consideration as well. And students just need to keep in mind, they're like any other test. Preparation is key, but they can succeed.
That is a great breakdown of why it's so important. I mean, various reasons here. Fewer courses, get to graduate early, maybe an opportunity to take some other advanced courses. No, that's great. That's great. What do parents need to know when it comes to studying for these exams? I know that the studying can be overwhelming at times for some students.
Yeah, so the best way to do that prep is hopefully they're doing it in school. But students should be taking released AP exams and seeing how they're doing on those released exams. And then, if it's AP chemistry, seeing what topics did they miss, and then just making sure that they go to their teacher at school, or they learn those topics on their own, or they enlist the help of a good tutor who will actually help them learn those topics.
Fantastic. I always enjoyed our conversations early on, David, when we talked about the SAT and the ACT, because there's so much emphasis on that, although there have been some colleges that have kind of excluded that in their admissions process, or so they say. I've asked this question before, but I think it's an important question to ask again. When it comes to your students who are getting ready for college admissions, should they take the SAT or the ACT? Which one should they take, and why should they take it?
Yeah, so there has been a lot of confusion about it. And there are some schools that are test blind, meaning they won't even look at your SAT, ACT results, even if you send them. But that's only 6% of schools in the country. 88% of schools in the country are what's called test optional, which means they're inviting you to send your SAT and ACT scores because they still care about SAT and ACT scores. And so good scores will always help a student's chances of admission, more merit aid, and scholarships. So the tests really are still advantageous, and students should take a practice exam or potentially the real exam of either, because you can pick and choose which test dates you want to send into colleges. So there's no downside to taking the real test. But once you figure out which test is the best for you, you can just keep taking that until you hit your score goal. You want to finish by November 1st of your senior year, because that's when early application deadlines for early decision and early action deadlines are for most colleges. So for the SAT, students can still take the May, June, August, and October SATs. For the ACT, they can still take the June, July, September, and October tests. So plenty of opportunities.
Should students go into it with a goal? I know with my kids, and they're past this process now. We had a goal that, okay, 30 on the ACT. That was our goal. If you can get 30 or above, we will reward you with a financial stipend. But is that a good idea? I mean, I guess you really got to know your child and what motivates them to do well, right?
So that's a fantastic idea. And there's two ways to break that down. You can look up the schools that you're applying to, and a lot of them will just have a chart of, if you get this score and have this GPA, which the GPA limits are much easier to hit. So basically, if you hit this SAT or ACT score, we're going to give you this much money per year, maybe $10,000, $15,000. So definitely look up on the school's websites, can I get money for a certain score? So that's for getting money. Then there's the admissions piece. And as far as setting a score goal for an admissions piece, I would look up all those schools again and look up their median SAT and ACT score. You want your SAT and ACT score to hit that or be above that for your scores to actually help you in admissions.
Let me ask you this. One of the last conversations we had, David, was about ChatGPT. And it's so interesting because right after we had that conversation, I saw it everywhere. Like everyone was talking about ChatGPT. So I like to say we're on the cutting edge here on the digital desk with you. How has that changed the test, if it has at all?
So speaking of the cutting edge, the last time we talked about it, it was version 3. Now, version 4 just came out a few weeks ago. It's changed everything again. And I should preface this with, I'm not encouraging students to do this because they shouldn't be doing this. But what students are doing now that version 4 is out is version 4 can almost perfectly copy the writing style of any writing that you put into it. So what students are doing is they're taking the essays of students who have been admitted to top colleges. They're inputting those essays and then saying, write my application essay in that style. And Johns Hopkins, for instance, on their website, which they should really remove, there's over 40 essays that worked. And so students can literally just I tried it out, and they can just put that into ChatGPT, say, write this essay for me, and in under a minute, they will get a top 1% essay. So if colleges don't adapt, they're really in trouble. They really need to do either proctored essays or interviews or do something to guarantee authentic content from their applicants.
That really sounds very scary and a big issue they need to address ASAP. I would think, David, that they would kind of highlight it when it comes to, the ACT or the SAT. Got to do the essay, of course, in person. But wow, for an application, I don't know how you make sure it's authentic.
I completely agree. And the SAT, unfortunately, actually discontinued its essay, and the ACT still has its essay, but no one needs to take it because colleges don't even look at it. So I really think that they need to rethink that, because right now they don't have any verified content from applicants. And to be honest, this was already a problem. I mean, you can Google, write my application essays for me. And there's a million firms that are out there to write your essays for you. Again, students should not do that, but it was always provided basically to the wealthy. The irony is ChatGPT has now allowed everyone to cheat. It's democratized cheating, which is wrong, but hopefully it will be enough to push colleges to actually fix the problem that already existed and is just much larger now.
Wow, interesting stuff. Very cutting edge as always, David. Thank you for that. What else can we talk about with regards to AP exams, SAT, ACT, that whole process that we haven't talked about already?
And one thing to put on people's radar is that next year, the SAT is changing from its current format from a 3-hour paper exam into a 2-hour digital exam that's going to be adaptive. So it's actually a good change, but for any families who have a sophomore right now, they need to be aware that in the middle of their child's junior year, that SAT is going to completely change. So the current SAT is only going to be offered until December 2023. The next SAT that's offered is in March of 2024. Very different test. So students should not start prepping for the current SAT unless they know that they'll be done by December if they're going to be a junior next year, or they should take the ACT. So something to consider.
Dumb question. How does the 2-hour digital exam differ from what the exam is now?
It's a great question. So the math and grammar are basically the same, but it's the reading that's going to change. And instead of being, a long reading passage and then maybe 10 questions on that reading passage, students will only get one short passage and then one question on that short passage. So no more long passages. There's also just more reasoning questions and some actually cool questions. I actually think that they did a good job on the remake, but this first year of students will unfortunately be guinea pigs for the new test.
Yeah, that's wild. I always enjoy talking with you because you know what's coming and you know like where we are in terms of testing and maybe how to get an edge and what students and parents need to know about. Anything else you want to mention before we let you go, David? This has been great, very helpful.
Thank you. Just if families would like a vetted list of the best tutors, they can head to nationaltestprep.org, and we would be happy to, help you find the best tutors in your area.
Awesome, David Blobaum. We really appreciate your expertise and your thoughts and all that valuable information you're sharing with so many people here in Memphis and across the Mid-South. Thanks very much.
My pleasure.
We are in store for another day of sunshine here across the Mid-South. In fact, temperatures hitting the low 80s, a south wind at 10 to 20, so a little bit breezy but unseasonably warm as we go through the afternoon. But let's talk about the chance for a few strong storms. Not a big chance, but as we go into tomorrow evening, tomorrow night, there may be some of those storms out there, especially in Arkansas, with a slight risk, mainly for wind or hail. And it's really a low end risk. This is a 1 or a 2 on a scale of 1 to 5. So not a huge deal, but something we'll keep an eye on just in case. But ahead of it, it's going to stay nice and warm, even through the day tomorrow as the clouds increase. We'll see a pretty warm afternoon, but those storms start to develop tomorrow afternoon over central Arkansas, and then they push to the east, and we'll see kind of waves of showers and storms as we go through Friday into Friday night. So it may not rain all day or all night, but certainly it's going to come in these waves as that low pressure system moves over us, and then we get colder air filtering into the Mid-South this weekend. Will feel pretty chilly across much of the region. Now let's talk about the exact timing in Futurecast, and I want to show you that rain moving in. So tomorrow morning will be dry, but as we go into the afternoon, here's those showers and thunderstorms. Eastern Arkansas around 5 o'clock. We may start the day with sunshine in some areas, but as we go through tomorrow night, we're all covered up in heavy rain. And again, most of that does not look severe at this point. Then we get a break early Friday morning, but another round comes in as we go through the day, Friday afternoon into Friday night. Again, heavy rain will be the main issue with this batch. Now, how much rain could fall? 1 to 2 inches on average, but I'm not going to rule out 3 inches in a few spots. So we're definitely going to get a big soaking out of this system. And then as we go to the weekend, temperatures struggling to get into the low to mid 60s. Clouds will linger some on Saturday. Sunshine returns on Sunday. And check out the First Alert 7-day forecast. We'll trade the 80s for the 60s over the weekend. Saturday night, 44 low here in Memphis, but there could be some upper 30s. Frost is a possibility on Sunday morning, and then as we go to Monday and Tuesday, only in the upper 60s and another chance of rain by the middle of next week.
Nearly 1 in 4 people in the U.S. are living with arthritis. It's the leading cause of work disability, costing billions in lost earnings. Age, obesity, genetics, certainly risk factors here. But it was a subject of our Best Life report, and I want to show you right now what you eat can really cause your symptoms to worsen. Take a look. Achy, sore, stiff joints, they're classic signs of arthritis, and they don't just affect the elderly.
We're seeing arthritis at an earlier age, not only in the knees, but shoulders, really everywhere.
Arthritis can severely affect a person's day-to-day.
The main symptom is pain, decrease in quality of life, a decrease in mobility.
And often limits a person's ability to work. According to the CDC, 1 in 10 adults have to limit their activities due to arthritis. But researchers say you may be able to reduce the severity of your symptoms by avoiding certain arthritis-inflaming foods. Wheat products like pasta, bread, bagels, and crackers contain gluten, and it is a protein that can aggravate arthritic joints. In fact, studies have shown that people with celiac disease are at an increased risk of developing rheumatoid arthritis, or RA, but those who went gluten-free were able to alleviate their symptoms. Added sugars are another thing to avoid if you have arthritis. A study in New England found that those who drank sugary beverages 5 times or more per week were 3 times more likely to have arthritis. Other foods that can increase your risk and worsen symptoms include red meats, processed foods, alcohol, and foods high in omega-6 fats like vegetable oils. Your diet is not the only factor in arthritis pain. Researchers say managing your smoking status, activity level, and body weight can also help ease arthritis symptoms. With Ways to Live Your Best Life, I'm Andrew Douglas, Action News 5. If you're traveling with your family this summer but haven't booked flights, get ready for some sticker shock. U.S. domestic fares predicted to exceed pre-pandemic prices as the summer travel heats up. Patrick Cornell shares 5 ways to save money. Prepare for what's expected to be a wild summer travel season. Take a look.
If you're planning to travel with your family this summer, a bit of planning can save you money as airfare prices soar.
You're seeing airfare today look approximately where it was pre-pandemic.
Travel expert Scott Keyes has these 5 tips to enjoy your family vacay without breaking the bank. Number 1, book flights now. Keyes recommends booking at least a month before your summer travel.
Airfare tends to move in one direction in the last few weeks before a flight, and it's not down. It almost always goes up. By May, there's almost no hope.
Which brings us to number 2. Be flexible with your travel dates. Either shift them earlier or later to find cheaper options. Number 3, consider going abroad.
London has gotten a ton of extra capacity added. A new budget airline called Norse Atlantic Airways has started to add nonstop flights from all over the U.S.
Number 4, be open to alternative destinations. Kai says instead of going to popular spots like Hawaii or Miami, go to underappreciated locations like Banff, Canada.
Tourism between the U.S. and Canada is still down about 20% from where it was pre-pandemic. And so you're going to, this is a place that would typically be quite crowded, especially during the middle of summer.
And finally, prepare for any potential summer travel frenzy. Get to the airport early, skip checking in your bags in case your flight has changed, and know your rights.
When you get that schedule change notification, don't view it as a negative. View it as an opportunity to get switched to a better flight without having to pay anything out of pocket.
For Consumer Watch, I'm Patrick Cornell.
First ever LEGO convention coming to the Mid-South this weekend. The Memphis Brick Convention will arrive at Landers Center in South Haven Saturday and Sunday. Detailed LEGO creations will be on display from artists all across the U.S., along with a meet and greet with some of those LEGO celebrities. For more information on tickets You can search for this story on our website, actionnews5.com. Okay, Andrew Douglas back here in the Action News 5 digital desk. It is so important to call before you dig when doing any kind of project, whether it's a do-it-yourself or major construction, because not only are there some dangers involved, but there's some major damage that you could do to underground utilities and what have you. Let's bring in Sarah Magruder-Lyle, President and CEO of Common Ground Alliance. Sarah, good morning. How are you?
Great. I'm well. Thank you so much for having me.
Tell me about Common Ground Alliance. What is that exactly?
The Common Ground Alliance is a nonprofit association dedicated to protecting underground utilities that deliver us critical services we depend on every day and making sure that those who live and work around those critical utilities are safe.
Okay, and we understand that damages to underground utilities cost an estimated $30 billion each and every year. That's incredible. Why should homeowners or contractors have their utility lines marked? I mean, I'm thinking about the utilities underground in my neighborhood. I don't know if they're marked or not. What can we do as homeowners, as people involved in our neighborhood to make sure that it's safe?
Well, keeping everybody safe is certainly a shared responsibility. And whenever you're doing work on your own property, or even if you're hiring a contractor to do work on your property, you should always make sure that you are contacting 811 or that you have a conversation with your contractor to ensure that they are calling 811 a few days prior to digging. In Tennessee, you're supposed to call at least 3 working days prior to digging. And I know that Tennessee 811 stands ready to help those diggers, be it DIYers or professional contractors, ensure that they're safe on their dig site.
Okay, and let's talk about the danger of damaging a utility line. I know that the dangers can run the gamut. It can be very dangerous out there.
That's correct. And you know, that $30 billion number is significant, and that is a conservative estimate. So, you know, when you hit an underground facility, it could be something as inconvenient as disrupting the internet to your own home, to something as catastrophic as hitting a gas line and causing a fire and explosion that damages property or causes a fatality. So as you noted, they do run the gamut. But that's all the more reason that we want to make sure we contact 811 a few days prior to digging to make sure that we stay safe.
So we know that there are so many do-it-yourself warriors that like to go out on the weekend, kind of do things, maybe dig in the ground. What's the best way to get that information out there if you're doing something, you're doing a project, you're going to be digging, just so that you're safe and you don't cause any disruptions?
Well, you know, it's interesting that you bring up those that are doing work, doing home improvement and DIY projects, because almost 35 million homeowners said that they were going to take on a digging project without contacting 811, and this is according to our most recent survey. So we need to make sure that we get the word out to all homeowners and all DIYers that calling 811 a few days prior to digging is critically important to keeping you and your family safe. And you can call 811 or you can visit your local 811 center online. And you can find out all the specifics about the digging process and what your state requires by going to 811beforeyoudig.com.
811, okay, that's a big one. That sounds like that's the resource where people can really go and just get any and all information about this topic. Anything else you want to mention to our viewers right now?
Good morning. I'm Amanda Hansen here at the Action News 5 digital desk. Let's talk about vaping among young people. It's apparently on the rise. In fact, I was looking at some new research that was saying more than 16% of high school students and almost 5% of middle school students reported using a tobacco product. So we're going to dive into this a little bit more. We have someone joining us right now, Dr. Susan Wally. She is here to talk more about this, give advice to parents. Doctor, good morning.
Hi, Amanda. Thanks so much for having me.
So glad to have you on. I think this is such a big topic, especially for parents, knowing what they can do to make sure that their child isn't vaping and doing these sorts of things. So let's just talk about some of the products that, nicotine products that they're using, and then just is this at a point where you could consider this a crisis among teens?
Absolutely, Amanda. I mean, we at the American Academy of Pediatrics, and I'm a parent of 3 boys and a pediatrician, this is a public health crisis. You know, we have adolescents who are not able to make it through their day because of severe nicotine addiction. And we know the reasons for that. You know, tobacco companies have, deceptively marketed these products and added flavors that include child enticing flavors like dessert, candy, things like Sour Patch Kids and chocolate and mango. And we know that these flavors attract our youth. And so, as you mentioned, you know, vaping is at a point where it is a public health crisis. There are also other nicotine and tobacco products, including oral nicotine pouches, gummies, lozenges. And so we at the American Academy of Pediatrics want, you know, parents to know that, you know, they can talk with their children, let them know that, you know, this is a dangerous health condition in terms of nicotine addiction.
So let's talk about that a little bit more. How parents, what can they do? Are there steps that they can take to protect their children and prevent them from using these types of products? What can they do?
Absolutely. There's so many things that we as parents can do. And first and foremost, we want parents to know that they are their child's most important role model. So if a parent is using tobacco and nicotine, you know, I want parents to know, your listeners to know, that there are a lot of resources out there to help them quit. We know that children who have parents and other caregivers that use tobacco are more likely to use themselves. And so that's number one. And then number two, we want parents and other caretakers to talk to their children. Let them know that there are health effects, negative, very severe health effects, including something called EVALI, e-cigarette or vaping associated lung injury. That's been associated with thousands of hospitalizations, death, you know, lung transplant due to lung failure. And so, you know, having that message out there is really important. Parents can also be advocates. And so the American Academy of Pediatrics strongly urges, you know, communities and, you know, both at the local, state, and federal level to make sure that they're enforcing, you know, policies that, you know, protect our children. First and foremost, the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, has regulatory authority over nicotine and tobacco, and we want to make sure that they exert and they regulate using that authority.
So let's, I know this is such an issue. I remember especially during the pandemic just talking about all those young people that were in the hospital with the lung issues and having to be on ventilators and things like that. So obviously a lot of information. Where can people go to learn a little bit more about some of the things that we talked about?
Absolutely. So the American Academy of Pediatrics has a wonderful website called healthychildren.org. And it, you know, explains the concerns about vaping and e-cigarette use, as well as, you know, nicotine and tobacco addiction. It also has lots of great information just about, you know, having healthy children and other child health issues. So healthychildren.org.
Well, Dr. Susan Wally, I appreciate your time this morning talking about such an important topic and some great information for those parents out there. You have a good one, all right?
Thank you, Amanda.
All right, so this is a topic that I think is so interesting. You know, we see so much data every single day. We're constantly on our phones. It's hard to put the phone down. And there's new research out there that's revealing that the volume of data that we are experiencing every single day, it's clouding our judgment, it's causing anxiety. And in fact, 78% of Americans say that they're getting bombarded with more data than ever before. It's a digital world. So we have a special guest joining us now to talk more about this, renowned data scientist and New York Times best-selling author Seth Stephens-Davidowitz joining us now to give us a few tips on how we can manage all this data that we seem to face every single day. Seth, good morning. How you doing?
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
I'm glad to have you on here. Let's just talk a little bit more about these findings. It doesn't surprise me that 78% of Americans are saying they're seeing more data than ever before, that from all the different apps, your email, everything's so accessible these days. So let's just talk about the findings a little bit more.
Yes, this is a study I partnered with Oracle, the company, on. And we were kind of seeing how are people using data. And there was a little bit of a depressing finding, which is that people know that data is really important, but they see so much data, they don't know what to do with it. And they basically just feel overwhelmed and find themselves not making decisions because they don't know how to make sense of all the information they're given.
So what role does this data play in our judgment, and also looking at maybe some of the other aspects in our lives?
Well, the role data could lead to incredible decisions. I mean, we live in an incredible age where there's more information available than ever to help us make decisions, and we're not flying blind. But I guess what this says is that a lot of people feel like they don't know how to make sense of all this information, and it's not necessarily helping as much as many of us may have hoped in making big decisions. And people are making more decisions the old-fashioned way. They're just throwing away all this data because they don't know how to make sense of it.
So let's just talk a little bit about where all this data is coming from, and then just maybe some ways you can manage it all.
Yeah, so data comes from everywhere now. You talk about your phone. Just there's more data collected because it's so easy to collect data in the digital world. But businesses, conduct more surveys than ever. They get data from all their different partners on how every ad's performing, what market research. It's coming from basically everywhere. And I think handling it requires a few things. One thing is being a little more comfortable with conflicting information. So I think a lot of people feel like if one data point says this and one data point says that, then, I don't know what to do. And they put their hands up and, I'm not going to use data to make this decision. I think you have to be more comfortable with uncertainty. We live in an uncertain world, and the world is confusing and probabilistic. So I think being more comfortable with uncertainty is really important.
And like you said, there's so many ways to get data. I think about when you're talking about marketing and all the different ways that you can retrieve information to understand your consumer. And so, like you said, I think in a way it's almost kind of like figuring out what's going to be the most value for you and then focusing on that instead of looking at all of this data that's out there. Because like you said, it can be overwhelming, right?
I think that's right. And I think one thing that also came out of this survey is that people feel like, well, they're not trained as a data scientist. They don't know how to code in R or Python, and they, even hearing those words, they're like, what's Python? So they're not trained to make sense of this information. I think people can make sense of data more than they might imagine. And I think people need to be more confident with their ability to kind of see the data, understand what it means, ask the right questions of it. So I think data isn't as confusing as it sometimes seems to people.
I think this research was really cool. Where can people go if they want to get some more information about some of the things that we kind of talked about?
So oracle.com would be a good place to start.
All right, great. Well, Seth, I appreciate your time and talking a little bit more about this. You have a great rest of the morning, all right?
You too.
All right, that does it for us here in the Action News 5 Digital Desk. Have yourself a wonderful afternoon. We got Action News 5's Ariana Poindexter at the top of the hour with Action News 5 Midday. You can check that out, and then you can join us again for another edition of the Digital Desk on a Thursday beginning at 8 o'clock. We'll see you then.